You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So, what'll I make you? Good? You're not good. You just know how to hide. Me, I don't have that problem. Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
Hello and welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where we are continuing our exploration of Brian De Palma's Scarface. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, my name is John Rocha. I'm a writer, producer, and host and voiceover artist down here in San Diego, California, and very, very happy to continue leading this exploration of one of my favorite films, Steve, here, jumping into part 3 of Scarface. We've done 2 parts. We're about to record this third part. Where are you emotionally or mentally about this movie?
I have evolved from where we started, which is where we started. I started by saying, I'm not the biggest Brian De Palma fan. I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. I understand why it's important, but I was excited to visit it with you, and it definitely has grown in my estimation. In particular, I feel like I understand the Elvira relationship a little bit more, which really didn't make sense to me. Right. I mean, the things that are Brian De Palma-y are still there. It still isn't a movie that hooks me in emotionally the way it does with you. Yeah. But that's, I mean, part of being a cinephile is sometimes not always liking the movie, but learning to appreciate them and their importance in cinema history.
So, yeah, look, I know people think some of our best episodes are the ones where we both are like in line with the movie, but I do think there is some great stuff when we both don't necessarily see eye to eye on the film that allows for more rounded discussion, I would say, more fleshed out discussion about things that work and don't work. And it's almost like a pseudo review in its way, which I think a lot of our listeners enjoy when we go into those tangents and go into those places on a film. And certainly we did that with Brief Encounter, and we're doing that here. We did that with Armageddon to a degree and Police Story to a degree. So these are...
And Crimson Tide and Lost in Translation.
Oh, right. Lost in Translation. That's right. I forgot about that one. Yeah. So... yeah, Steve, but we have some announcements to get out of the way before we jump into part 3. What do we got here?
Well, I mean, part of the people going through this movie with us as our supporters on Patreon, as well as Apple Podcasts, and we literally could not make the Cine-Files without you. So thank you very much for all of your support. We truly, truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. And another way you can support our show is when you listen to it and you hear the commercials and the sponsors, if you want to try out their products using our code, which is most of the time the website address and then Cine-Files, you'll get a great discount to try out their product, and you'll indicate to these sponsors that this is a podcast they should keep supporting because people like you are enjoying their products and trying out their products. That's really important. And we just picked up Uncommon Goods again, so they're back with us, along with Washington Red Raspberries and Hims. So it's always great to be able to work with people and sponsors consistently. We hope to pick up more. And we've made some moves recently with people over at Red Circle that hopefully will lead to more sponsors of our show because it allows us to grow more and more. So thank you to everyone who's been doing that and tried out products from our sponsors.
You know what I realized, John? At the beginning of last episode, we were heading to the club.
Yeah.
And guess what? At the beginning of this episode, we are also heading towards the club.
And before we do that, Steve, we're about to jump in and go to the Babylon Club. We should once again... for people who might be discovering this podcast for the first time, even though I don't know why you jump in on a part 3 of the movie, to say trigger warnings right at the beginning. This is a film that deals with drug abuse, deals with some very harsh languages, harsh situations, some violence. We will at times say the dialogue of the things that we're talking about that could be offensive to people, but it is the movie we are discussing, and we do not pull punches when it comes to those kinds of things. So if that is something you are sensitive about, we warn you ahead of time before we go into it. But as Steve said, let's cut to the Babylon Club where Manny greets Tony. And now Tony, Steve, walks through this place like a king. He is greeted by the host there and he walks to the dance floor. And as he does, standing almost like what Hans Gruber says, he's like Alexander surveying his kingdom in a way. He sees that Gina is there in a sparkly dress with a skeezy looking dude in a big scarf dancing with her and putting his hands all over her, Steve.
First of all, she has got some big 80s hair. I just want to point out there was that moment where everybody started getting these big perms. That is a big perm. The second thing, the dissonant music that hits when he sees Gina is really intense. And for the last week, John, I have been thinking about what you brought up in terms of whether or not there is a potential incestuous relationship with Gina as a child or something like that, which had never, ever occurred to me. Wow. And thinking about it now, I go, it is supported by the movie, particularly with this extremely dissonant music here.
Yes.
And I don't like it. And so this is this weird thing of like, is it supported by the movie? Yeah, I think you could make that claim. If I had that thought, I would have hated Tony, not just disliked Tony Montana. Right. I already don't like the guy.
Right.
But if I had the thought that he had molested his sister or wanted to, I would fully have turned on him. So it's this weird thing of like where I go, could it be supported by the movie? Yeah. I go, this movie for me is less good if I think that thought. And so I try not to think that thought.
That's amazing. Because I have found that to be a curious thing about going through the movie with you from the first two parts, because I have never not known the movie to indicate that there is an incestuous relationship from Tony's point of view. Not that I don't know if it's ever been indulged, right? But this idea that he could have a sexual attraction to his sister because he is a supremely fucked up guy who would have maybe developed that as overprotection blurs into this kind of thing. And listen, if you do the research, if you do the study, there is, evidence of brothers and sisters having sexual relations and stuff like that. So it is part of it. And certainly in the original movie, it is very clear that there is a thing from his side for her and that she kind of encourages. And I wonder if you'll feel the same way about this movie as we get into some of the scenes that are about to come up in this Babylon Club, as you hear my point of view.
Let's get to it. I want to hear your point of view.
And as Steve was saying, we hear this dissonant music, and Tony almost goes red, Steve, as he watches her dance in slow motion, so much so that he is about to lose himself. You know, sometimes you can stand and stare at something, and then you just kind of disappear into the staring. That's essentially what's happening here with Tony. And Manny has to verbally shake him out of it. And he tells him about the guy who is dancing with Gina. It's a guy who works for Lugo, who we don't know who Lugo is, and that he's harmless. And just as Tony is in the red state of existence, he's gone red in his meter, Mel Bernstein taps Tony's shoulder really hard and turns him around. And this is the late, great Harris Yulin.
He has been in so much stuff. And there's so many guys in this film that are like that, where they've just been in, movie after movie, TV show after TV show. He's in Night Moves, Ghostbuster 2. He's in Clear and Present Danger. He's in The Hurricane, Training Day. He was on Frasier. He won Emmy Awards. He has been in tons of stuff over the years.
Yeah, Harris, one of the great character actors for sure. And a great voice.
Hello, Tony. Oh, you remember me?
Bernstein. Mel Bernstein. Chief Detective, Narcotics.
I think we should talk.
Talk? What are we gonna talk about? I ain't killed nobody. Not lately.
No, not lately. What about ancient history, like Emilia Rapena? A bunch of whacked-out Indians at the Sunray Motel.
Why would he know about Rebenga and the Colombians, Steve?
Well, what we find out, I know why he knows, but even if he was a cop, you could see that a cop might have investigated that and found out some stuff. There might have been witnesses, but yes, there's more going on than just a shakedown from the police.
Look, Tony, baby, are we going to talk, or am I going to bust your wise-ass spick balls?
Oh, the spick term, always popping up every once in a while.
There are two things. Obviously, it's an interesting scene anyway, particularly in the way he presents himself as a corrupt cop.
Yes.
Because there isn't any facade of him being real police. It's just, he literally says at one point, I got 8 killers with badges.
Yep.
Like that is, I am a criminal who is a policeman. That is what he's saying.
And this is the thing about the film, and I want to make it clear, and maybe I haven't always made it clear in the first two parts, but there is commentary going on in this movie. De Palma, Oliver Stone's script, there is commentary about these people. Because as we're about to find out with Bernstein, although he's open about it, Steve, he also thinks that his cops have some nobility on their side because they're cops, even though they're corrupt cops. And so this is going to, a fascinating thing is going to pop up as we get into the scene between the two of them as they're talking here. And Bernstein now, as they sit down at Tony's table, schools him on how this works.
Let's say that you got a real problem making a collection, all right? And then we step in for it. I got 8 killers with badges working for me, and when they hit, it hurts. Same thing works the other way.
This is blatant corruption, Steve, which was a massive deal in Miami at the time, and honestly, sadly, still is with some police people out there in our world.
What's interesting about the way it's handled in this film is that it feels almost like, you know what it is? You know how in Breaking Bad, once you find Saul Goodman can hook you up with all the services helpful to drug dealers and criminals. The moment that Tony goes on his own, as he has now, it's like the banker's going to show up. Hey, we'll help you process the money. The police show up. This is the service we provide. This is how much it's going to cost you. It is very much that, and I think this is an Oliver Stone point of view. It's that the mob and the government and the police, they're all just different organizations that are corrupt in all their own ways. That's how Oliver Stone sees the world.
Something you've been saying for the first 2 parts, and great point, Steve. Something you've been saying for the first 2 parts is how this movie mirrors The Godfather. And certainly we have the scene near the end of the movie with Vito before he dies and Michael sitting out in the garden. And Vito is lamenting that Michael didn't become more in his mind. And Michael says, why did you want me to be a pezzo novante? Another guy like dancing on their strings. I want to be my own thing. When Kay is talking to Michael and Kay says presidents and people like that, business people don't have people killed. And he says to her, who's being naive, Kay? And it's the same thing here. This idea that, as you said, Stone and De Palma are showing you that these organizations are very similar. And later, when Tony is in the bathtub, Tony is essentially saying that the corruption that's going on and that these people are organized corruption much more than organized mafia is corruption. And so you see all of that and the similarities here as you're talking.
How do I know you're the last cop I'm gonna have to grease?
Well, it's not my business, Tony, you know. We don't cross no lines. Listen, you think I want this conversation going any farther than this table?
And this is fascinating, Steve, because he makes this pivot now to talk about his people in some, as I said, some noble way.
My guys got families. They're legitimate cops. I don't want to see them embarrassed. If they're embarrassed, they're going to suffer. And if they suffer, they're going to make you suffer.
He is playing both sides in his mind. And I think some people in positions of power do convince themselves that they can act corruptly with someone they see who is more corrupt, but somehow retain nobility about the profession they've chosen to be in, even though they are undercutting that profession by engaging in corrupt acts.
Absolutely. I think that is key to the movie and the idea, because this cop has to frame this in some way that he can hold on to some idea that he's still a cop.
Yes.
And the idea like, oh, I'm supporting all these hardworking policemen. This is the only way they can get by. Right. Therefore, I can tell myself on some level I'm a good guy. And actually, this is how I see the Gina thing, which is, to me, the Gina thing isn't I'm attracted to my sister. It's that my sister is the one pure thing in my life. So if I protect her purity, then there's something still good about me. That's much more how I see it. I can see by your face that you don't see it that way at all, but that's more how I see it.
Well, yeah, fair. And it's because you're trying to give him, or not trying to give him, I can say it's because you want to see this point of view in Tony. So there's some redeeming characteristics of Tony, right? Which I understand. He's the protagonist, you know.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, this is why I said at the beginning, I would never make this movie because if you look at everything I've written, there's always a moral question. Like that's what interests me. I'm interested in moral questions. I'm interested in people struggling between good and evil choices and what is good and what is evil. So if I were to make a movie about a Cuban immigrant who becomes a powerful drug dealer, he would be struggling with those things. And he might still do horrible things because people do, but it wouldn't be the way that it is, you know, because it's not who I am.
Sopranos are like that. Sopranos is like that. Tony, there are redeeming things about Tony. And watching that David Chase documentary on HBO recently, kind of turned me around about the show a little bit in ways that I hadn't thought about. And this is a job to Tony.
Right.
And so, but he cares about his family, even though he's messed up and how he cares about his family. He cares about Meadow, cares about AJ. He has his own stuff that he struggles with. But then at the same time, he does some pretty terrible shit to people, including members of his own family and his crew. You know, no one escapes the moment where Tony might kill them. Paulie Walnuts has a moment out on the boat with Tony where it looks like Tony might kill him. Silvio has a moment near the end of the series where Tony might kill Silvio. There's no one.
Christopher,
which he literally does. And so it's like, you know, absolutely. So yeah, it's a great way to do your protagonist, you know, because it's supposed to reflect some of the instincts we have as human beings.
Right.
Well, now that Mel has locked down his deal, he thanks Tony for the drink. And then, as if to twist the needle even more, Steve, to keep this in his mind, probably this fresh off the boat spick in his place.
By the way, got a vacation coming. I'm gonna take the wife to London, England. You've never been there. So throw in a couple of round-trip tickets, first class.
It's such a power move.
It is.
What he is doing is he's saying, you have no choice.
Yes.
You are small and little and weak, and we are the police. And so not only are you going to pay me this huge amount of money, not only can I not guarantee that other cops aren't going to come after you, but you're going to buy me plane tickets, which means you're going to do all sorts of things for me down the line and for the rest of your life. That's what he's saying to Tony.
And this is going to be a prevalent message throughout this last part of the movie, throughout this entire rest of the movie. There are going to be people who come into Tony's life from positions of power who are going to try to make Tony do certain things because he is now playing at a level that is beyond where he's ever experienced and has the skill to navigate. And it's a perfect time to bring up this story that when Martin Scorsese saw the movie, he talked to, was it Al Pacino or Oliver Stone? One of the guys he talked to on the film, De Palma, Pacino, or Stone, and said to him, I love this movie, but you better get ready because people are going to turn on this movie, especially in Hollywood, because this is in essence your commentary on Hollywood. And that that filmmakers are Tony Montana to a degree, not that the morality of Tony Montana, but trying to break into the business, and that the business itself is Sosa, is Bernstein, Bernstein, is Frank, is these people who've been around the system and want the politicians, the guy who runs the bank manager. These are the people who are in charge of the system. And if you're trying to break in, they are going to take little pieces of you and make you be under their feet or under their knee and put your neck under their knee so they can control you and what you're trying to do. And so I had never seen the movie that way. And when I read that early on in the research for this movie and rewatching it, I was like blown away at how much it absolutely applies. And the fact that Scorsese saw that just speaks volumes about how smart that dude is in looking at movies, you know?
It never occurred to me. It 100% tracks. Like, I literally was just on a call about the assistants, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
And we were talking about my initial deal, which was the initial deal with the sales agent that was corrupt and terrible and untrustworthy. Right. My initial deal was she had to make $80,000 before I made a dime.
Right.
The first 80 grand went to her. You want to know how much the assistants made? About $75,000. Oh,
wow. So everything went right.
Everything went to her.
Wow.
So like, and this is yes, this is how Hollywood works. Yeah. You think you're going like, you hear that somebody got $1 million. You're like, they're rich. They succeeded. And you're like, well, 30% went to their agent and manager. Another 10% went to their lawyer. Then they've got assistants and staff, and they have to put money into this upcoming event that's going to come on, and they don't clear that much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that applies to sports as well. People are like, well, look at how much money they signed for. And it's like, we don't even know how they're not even see half of that money because of all the other people that need to get paid out in their lives. It's true.
And like Tony, they spend money foolishly. Many of these people, you know,
some of them do. Right. That changed a lot since the 90s. But yes, that was definitely the case in times past. But before he gets on the phone with his travel agent to get Mel a couple of round trip tickets to England, Tony sees Frank walk in with Elvira. And then Bernstein says something really funny, Steve. He says to Tony,
You gotta smile more, Tony. You gotta enjoy yourself. Every day above ground is a good day.
not only has he chiseled Tony to take a percentage of his money every month, which he wrote down on that napkin and showed Tony, he also chiseled him to get some tickets to England. And now he's even going to leave him with advice, just like Frank does. He's trying to leave him with a little bit of advice of how to live his life after he's taken his piece of the pie, you know?
The just smile more is so condescending. It's like you say to a woman, like you'd look nicer if you smile a little bit. Come on, hon, cheer up. Like it is real bad.
It's an arrogance for sure.
Yeah.
Tony then gets up and walks away from Mel without saying a word as Mel stares at him with such contempt because the camera lingers on Mel's face. And I take that lingering as us looking at Mel and seeing that Mel hates that this is his life and that, he plays the power game in the moment, but he's also a guy who's living a life he didn't want to live and doesn't look happy that he has to deal with people like Tony Mon. Then Tony sits next to Elvira at Frank's booth, and now we have a tense exchange between Tony and Frank.
And where Tony sits,
yes,
like Tony sits on the short side of the booth. You know, it's a round booth, and she's sitting fairly close to one end. So the natural place to come sit if you're joining someone at a booth would be across from them. But Tony sits right next to her, in the most aggressive way, knowing that Frank is there. I mean, this is a move that he is making right now.
He puts his arm around her too, almost as if it's his property, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I have to think power dynamics. Mel has just taken Tony down a peg. Mm-hmm. And now Tony is trying to retain some semblance of power in his own life by walking up to Elvira because he sees Frank as soft and he's going to like inflict his power now on Frank to reestablish the power dynamic he feels about himself. You know, the power level he feels about himself.
And don't forget, just in the background, Gina.
Yes.
Like that is a huge, she is present through the scene with Mel. She's present through the scene with Elvira. Her presence is having a strong effect on Tony as well.
Yeah, and really smart for the costumers to put her in a dress that bright and shiny because you see her throughout. By the way, I read something before I started this third part. I was looking at some trivia and some other websites. One of the things they said is that you can see Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio in the scene in Miami when they're out having tropical drinks. She's in a pink bikini. The thing is that Tony doesn't know what she looks like now because it's been so long, and she's there. So I have to go back and see if I catch her in that scene. That would be really an interesting piece of trivia to have her having been there around.
So I read that too, and I looked. It might be her. I couldn't quite tell. Okay. So check it out and tell me if you think it's her.
I will.
Hey, Doug, what's your 5-year-old girl?
My own girl?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. Huh?
Oh, you go do it somewhere else. Get lost.
Hey, maybe I don't hear so good sometimes.
You're not going to be hearing anything if you go on like this.
What? You're going to do something?
You're fucking right I'm going to do something. I'm giving you orders. Blow.
And then Tony moves into a challenging position here, Steve. He adjusts himself on the booth seat there, and he is now open to possibly jump, to possibly receive an attack from Frank and push back. And he says to Frank,
"Orders? You giving me orders?"
Amigo, the only thing in this world that gives orders is balls. You got it? Balls.
That is all Tony's philosophy.
Yep.
And he uses that. I'm going to step up. He used it with Sosa. He used it with the Colombians. He used it with Omar. This is I'm going to step in and you have to deal with me. That's his tactic.
When he thinks he has power or he feels he's been offended in some way, all of a sudden he like pulls out the balls technique, as we might call it.
The balls technique.
But we just saw with Mel, he certainly didn't want to show his balls because Mel actually comes from a position of power with the cops and the government. So he's not as brazen with Mel as he would be with Frank. When he sees you're soft, he'll use his balls. Now, the Sosa situation, we see that he tosses his binoculars at Sosa, as we said in the second part, and says, "Make your move," right? That's Tony feeling himself because when he gets offended, no one has status over him. But in a moment like with Mel, when he feels a little like they do have the power, he doesn't play that balls game. But here with Frank, because he knows as he said, that Frank is soft, he has no problem telling Frank that he's essentially a castrated eunuch.
I think this is one of Tony's real weaknesses, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
Is that because it's not that it doesn't work. It does work sometimes. Sure. But if he actually had some other moves, he had some other plays he could make, he actually would be much more effective. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like because essentially when you step up to people all the time, eventually someone's going to call you. Yeah. And that's going to be Sosa at the end of the movie.
Right.
Like, because what you're saying is, I am trusting that you're going to back down or that I can beat you at violence. Those are the only two options Tony now has when he makes this move. And most of the time against a guy like Frank, this move works, you know, but it's, it's again, we're going to the Michael Corleone. Michael Corleone has so many tricks in his bag of tricks. He can play on any level.
Oh, yeah.
And Tony can only play on this level, you know?
Right. Because he's only intelligent enough to play at this level, unfortunately. Well, not that good, so, unfortunately, in terms of for him.
Yeah, for him.
Well, Frank is embarrassed now, looks at Manny, and then says, "Let's go." And Elvira leaves with him.
What are you gonna learn, man? Huh? Looking good, honey. Keep up the bad work.
Very similar to Manny yelling lesbian and bitch to the woman when he stuck his tongue out at her. This is Tony's way of kind of going at Elvira for the same situation because he senses he's been rejected by her when she leaves with Frank.
That cocksucker.
What happened?
He put that prick Bernstein on me.
Who Lopez did? How do you know this, man?
Who else knew about Rebecca?
But again, we hear that dissonant music, Steve, and Tony is watching Gina in slow motion one more time, walking to the bathroom with the guy she was dancing with. And as soon as he puts her hand on her butt, Tony takes off after Gina with Manny chasing after him. Here we go, Steve.
I mean, I do get it. If my 20-year-old sister were at a club with an older guy who was then what's going to happen next is dragging her into a stall in a men's room with drugs, I would be pissed off too. Like, this is a dangerous situation. So I do, but the intensity of Tony is real scary.
And of course, I'm going to offer a counterpoint. I don't think you show his hand going on her ass unless there is a sexual jealousy there, in my opinion. So, but
you would be okay watching a much older man stick his hand on your sister's ass?
I don't know that he's that much older than Gina. He looks to be in his mid-20s. Gina's what, 19 when this is
I think he looks 30s.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, well, I had to look at him again now.
I don't know. Brown doesn't age like that, bro. No, I mean, no, that was, my sister was very much her own person. And I was not allowed to judge any of her boyfriends or restrict her from dating any of her boyfriends. Listen, the Rocha blood is strong, male or female. So,
I am sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. We see, but I hear your point, of course. We see Gina being led into the men's bathroom, as Steve was alluding to, with Lugo, and she playfully resists and then goes in anyway. And this is the young game, Sure. He's convincing her, and she eventually does go in, and she dances into his private bathroom, which is a bathroom stall. And just as they're kind of starting to get into things, Tony bursts into the men's room. And as we see Gina and this guy snorting coke and getting intimate, Tony kicks open the stall, shocking Gina. By the way, this was actually Pacino kicking the stall in, and that is a legitimate reaction from Mastrantonio. And I think of Al Pacino slapping Diane Keaton in Godfather Part 2, really slapping her to get the reaction.
Yeah.
I think this was an element of that, because if you watch Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, she is legitimately afraid of what just happened. He then grabs the dude, yanks him out of there. Over Gina's protests, he hands the dude very forcefully to Manny and then turns his anger on Gina. He grabs her face, and then we see, in my opinion, a full-blooded Latino sibling fight here, mixed in possibly with some attraction from both of them, as Manny kicks everybody out and closes the door.
What do you think? It's cute? Huh? Got somebody putting his hand all over your ass? My kid sister? In the toilet?
Your business.
None of my business. The fuck it ain't. Hey, come on.
You can't tell me what to do.
Telling you what to do. Listen to me. I got you here again.
I'm gonna wipe you all over this fucking place.
Oh,
Do you understand, Jack?
Yeah, go ahead. Do it now. I want to see it. I want to see it now, big
Don't
shot.
push me, baby.
No, I want
Don't
to
you
see it
fucking
now.
push me.
And this is my comment. Steve may disagree, but there's almost a weird kind of sexual tension between them because she gets right in his face and her lips are very close to his lips as they're going back and forth on this. And Tony even says, "Don't push me, baby. Don't you fucking push me." And then he shoves her over to Manny.
I am now very curious to hear from the people listening if they're seeing this thing that John is of the sexual attraction, because I don't. I really don't see it in this scene. I see two people yelling at each other. I see it's intense. I see it's siblings and feeling and all that stuff, but I do not see this sexual attraction. And I'm curious, but that it's as I said, it's perfectly possible. So I'm curious what other people are seeing in this.
I mean,
moment.
she's going like, yeah, and she's making these guttural noises to Tony, and it's almost, in my opinion, it feels very much like she's almost turned on by Tony's overprotection of her, anger towards her. But yeah, well, I'm curious to see what people think who are watching the movie, especially any of our Latino listeners, if you have thoughts on this as well. But she rips away from Manny now and gives Tony the exact same defiant energy he gives to other people, and she launches in on him, Steve.
You got some nerve, Tony. You think you can come in here now and tell me what to do?
Get out of here.
You can't tell me what to do, Tony. No more. I am not a baby anymore. I'll do what I want to do. I'll see whoever I want to see. And if I want to fuck him, Tony, then I'll fuck him.
And this is all too much for Tony, who rears back and slaps his sister to the ground. It's a brutal moment, Steve, that reminds us as the audience of the mean asshole we have maybe been cheering for in this movie.
I mean, you brought up the Michael slapping Kay in The Godfather. This is he hits her. There is this is not a fake stage slap. This might even look harder than the one in The Godfather. I don't know. They're both really hard.
Yeah.
And I looked around to see if Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio said something about this slap. I couldn't find anything, but this is not fucking around. He really hit her. And it might very well be that it was a great moment for both actors because it was real and it felt good. And it might not be. I don't know the answer, but it's scary.
But why? Why does he slap when she says, if I want to fuck him, Tony, then I'll fuck him? See, I hear your point about like, oh, my kid's sister and all of this. If she says, if I'm going to fuck him, Tony, then I'll fuck him, he slaps her.
Let me ask this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make this about your family. Let me ask it a different way.
You can, but go ahead. I'll tell you the
truth.
truth.
Latino father, and he's having this fight with his daughter, and she says that. Does he slap her?
No. Oh, my God, no. Fathers don't slap their daughters. The Latino father, that is like not in the culture. It happens. It happens, right? But it's not a revered thing in the culture. Like that is seen as such a, because it's not, we kind of don't do that. And in the movie, Tony slaps his sister, right? But like he is not a person who is committing violence towards women in the movie or kids. There is a thing in the Latin culture where we do not do that. You know, our aunts, our moms can beat on us. We're not going to put our hands on the women in our culture or sister. Like I've never had a physical fight with my sister ever once. And my sister has said the most horrendous stuff to me, and vice versa, by the way. We're younger arguing, but I've never put my hands on her. And so like, that's just like a line you don't cross with a lot of Latinos. But of course, Tony in that moment unleashes and slaps her, which speaks to the kind of lack of morality he has in this situation because she pushes his buttons over the over protection. This to me does not read like I must care for my pure thing that he would slap her like this. You know?
Yeah, it's fun. I'm glad you said this because I didn't know that about Latino culture. That's really good to know because I can totally picture in another very religious culture that slap exactly happening. If a woman is swearing with her religious parent who wants to keep them pure, I totally see that slap happening. You know, but
again, mother to daughter, that's a whole nother ball game, right? That's a different, that I could see happening. Mother to daughter for sure. Father to daughter, I don't know that I would ever see that happen. Well, Manny is hurt by what Tony has done, Steve, and he finally shows some pushback on Tony.
Man, come on, man.
And then Tony walks out. As Gina, now, Steve, this feels like she's clearly traumatized by what just happened. Plus the liquor and the drugs in her system. Like, it's almost like I don't know what the word is, but I always think of like, it's not that she's been raped necessarily, but certainly something has been violated here by Tony slapping her in this way. And the fact that she's kind of looking around embarrassed that people might have seen this. It's a very traumatic thing that Tony has just done to her.
I think she is 100% freaked out. And it is definitely that moment of drugs, booze, adrenaline, violence, pain. She's freaked out. And the other thing is, I mean, we got to say, Manny's in love with her.
Yes.
You know, or right. Manny is falling in love with her. So
yes.
all of that is going on here too.
And we're about to find out that she's been noticing this for quite some time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, out of nowhere, Steve, we cut to comedian Richard Belzer on the stage. And for those of you who are Law & Order SVU fans, you know who Richard Belzer is, or Homicide: Life on the Street fans. This is right around the time when he starts to make the transition into acting from stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. He did host a show for a while, very famously, when Hulk Hogan pulled a move on him and knocked him out, and he sued him. You remember that? So, yeah. What are your thoughts on seeing Richard Belzer in this movie?
So I had to share with you, I don't think I've ever told you the story, and I'll tell it as fast as I can.
Okay.
That for decades in my life, there was a running joke that Richard Belzer owed me $5,000.
What?
So here's how this happened. When I was in college, I had a professor named Mel Gordon, who was a theater professor. He knew I was a writer. He liked my writing. He was buddies with Richard Belzer.
Oh, nice.
He and Richard Belzer had bought the rights to a comic book written by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, who created Superman after Superman, that wasn't owned by DC, called Funny Man. And Mel Gordon and Richard Belzer owned the rights to Funny Man. And Mel came to me and said, we want you to be our head writer on this new animated series called Funny Man. And he said, I will pay you $5,000 to write a Bible and the first 2 episodes, which I did. And he said, as soon as Richard Belzer and I sell the show, we're going to give you the $5,000. Nothing ever happened after that. It was the first quote unquote professional writing job I ever had. And so for years, it was just like, just waiting for that $5,000 to come in from Richard Belzer, and then I'm going to be good. Yeah. Never met him though.
Oh, rest in peace. Because he's
rest in peace.
On, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Belzer tells a few jokes as we pan over to Tony sitting in a booth. He is clearly fucked up now, Steve.
Yeah.
He was riding high. He's on his way up. And he's sitting here now at one of the lowest points of his life, I would think. He's slapped his sister. Mel has put the screws to him. Frank is getting the best of him through Mel. And Elvira didn't even leave the club, or didn't stay in the club to be with him. She left with Frank.
And one other thing with this is Belzer is making Ricky Ricardo jokes.
Yes.
Like he's making jokes about Cubans.
Yes.
And I don't think that's obviously compared to Gina and Elvira and Frank and all those are not, it's not important, but I think it's really key that even in his, essentially his club where he has all the power, they're making fun of Cubans.
That's true. As the camera pans across the club and Belzer is telling his jokes, we land on 2 Latino guys who aren't laughing at any of the jokes, look incredibly serious. And we hear that rattlesnake sound again in the music, warning us of danger. Then we cut to Manny, who is driving Gina home and defending what Tony did as brotherly love, but Gina isn't buying it.
Right now, you happen to be the best thing in his life. The only thing that's any good, that's pure. So he has this father thing for you. He feels like he has to protect you.
Protect me against what?
Against guys like that asshole that you were dancing with tonight.
Hey, I like Fernando. He's a fun guy and he's nice. And he knows how to treat a woman, all right?
He knows how to treat a woman?
Yes.
By taking her to the toilet to make out.
I have this comment, Steve. These are the well-written moments of levity and humor amidst the darkness of this movie that are so essential for making this movie work.
Well, I think part of it is Manny is so likable.
Yes.
Like I like Manny. You know, in the way I don't like Tony. I'm fascinated by Tony. Right. And I think this scene, I mean, Manny's on Team Steve. He is saying that it's her purity that Tony wants to protect.
Right.
Now, I have 2 questions about this.
Okay.
How clear is Manny about his feelings for Gina? Does he know that he is in love with Gina at this point? Is he just attracted to her? Is he not thinking about it at this point?
I think if he was just sexually attracted to her, he might have done something by now, even with Tony's warning. I think he is in love with her, which is what makes this all so complicated and why he's trying to play both sides of the situation by defending Tony, but also like, you know, being there for Gina and taking care of her and driving her home and all of that. So he's trying to play this game as best he can because, you know, Manny's not the smartest guy in a lot of ways, but he does care about her. And so there's, as you said, you sense that he's a good guy. There's a purity to him, even though he's part of this drug trade. But we never see him do anything violent or terrible to anybody that isn't being done to him first. Right. Yeah.
No, they establish him. It's like they keep him in a slightly separate area. They protect the morality of his character and the likability of his character. And I think the other thing about him is, to some degree and in an increasing degree, part of his job is to manage Tony.
Yes.
Part of his job, he knows that this guy is crazy and increasingly crazy.
Right.
And his job is to try to keep things from happening that are going to make it go south.
Yeah.
And one of the things, this is why I think there's kind of two things going on in the scene with Gina. One of the things is he really likes Gina and he's attracted to her. And I think you're right. I think he likes her more than he is turned on by her.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's more than sexual. Yeah. That's the first thing. But the second thing is he sees Gina as a flashpoint. She's like a powder keg that could explode Tony at any time. And so he needs to keep her under control to keep Tony under control.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if he's got that much forward thinking, but you can make a case, Steve, for sure, that he's trying to keep everything calm. Even later when him and Elvira get into a fight, he tries to like calm the situation. So I agree with you. Managing Tony however he can and whoever he has to talk to manage Tony is an essential part of his job. And to be fair, Manny is a fuck up. Manny fucks up shit throughout this whole movie. So
he fucks up one really big thing that leads to him getting killed.
But remember,
I mean, that is a stupid plan.
Yes, but remember, he was messing around with the blonde and went past the time, and Angel might not have died by a chainsaw if he had gotten up there earlier, right? And so it's the women that fucks with Manny, and he's essentially like Bugsy Siegel in a way, which I think has got allusions to that here. Well, speaking of darkness, Steve, and the darkness of this movie, we head back to the club because we cannot leave the Babylon Club. And as this guy, Octavio, is introduced, which is an oversized Frank Sinatra, a guy in an oversized Frank Sinatra suit, dancing to strangers in the night, we can feel the tension growing in the club. And then we cut back to Manny and Gina in the car. And as Manny is trying to tell her that she needs to go out with somebody who's got something on the ball, who's going somewhere in life, she cuts him off quickly and says,
Like who?
Like, for instance, someone who's got a real job, like a banker or a doctor,
what about
a lawyer.
And she puts it on the table. And they exchange a look between them. Because now Manny, who probably thought he'd been hiding this, has essentially been called out by Gina.
What are you talking about?
Why don't you take me out?
What, are you crazy?
I see the way you look at me, Manolo. What do you think, I'm blind? I see.
This moment is such a critical moment in the movie.
Yep.
She has put it on the table. She has realized it, and she is saying, I am attracted to you.
Yeah.
She is not, it's not just, I see that you're attracted to me. She's saying, this door is open. We should date.
Yes.
And Manny was in the car with Tony when he said that she's attractive and saw Tony's reaction tonight. Mm-hmm. So that means that this sentence from her, it's exactly what I was talking about before. This is fucking dangerous.
Yes.
What she just said. And then he has to come up with how to respond.
Tony and I are like brothers, all right? And you're his kid sister.
So
And that's where it ends. That's where it stays.
What, are you afraid of Tony, huh? You afraid of Tony's kid sister, huh?
I'm not afraid of anybody, okay? That's not the point here.
And Gina has a wry smile on her face because she likes how hot and bothered she just got Manny. It's a control game they're playing. Listen, Gina, just because Tony wants her to be pure doesn't mean that Gina doesn't have the Montana blood in her as well. Yeah. She is at that club. She is dancing with a guy who's putting his hands all over her. She's going into a bathroom stall to do coke with this guy. So she has her own thing. And I think in a alternate reality, if Gina hadn't gotten murdered by Sosa's people, Gina would have taken over the Montana crime family from Tony once he was killed. 100%.
You think Gina was taking over the family?
I think she would have 100% taken over the drug enterprise once Tony was murdered. 1,000%. If she had
I'm gonna have to contemplate that as we go. I also think, like we've already said, we've discussed essentially Tony's balls, and that's his move. If anyone challenges him, he goes full on after them.
Yeah.
Now Manny is not Tony.
Nope.
But what she just said, "Oh, are you afraid of Tony?"
Yeah,
is the same. She's challenging him as a man, and like,
yes.
yeah. And this is, I mean, I'm not going to speak to you about Latino culture, but Manny is a part of it. He's not Tony, but still, it essentially puts him in a fraught position.
Yeah,
because here's this girl he's attracted to, who's called him a coward for not dating him. If he dates him, his crazy friend is going to explode, and he has to prove that he's not afraid, but not make his friend explode. And he likes this girl. This is a complicated moment.
It is, man. It's way too intelligent, man. A moment for Manny to handle. And so I think Gina. Look, she is 18 and she is playing Manny like a fiddle here. She knows exactly what she's doing in putting this on the table, because Gina has the Montana blood in her as well. There is a desire to play with fire, and you see it in the way she's having this. Don't get it twisted. Just because Tony wants her to be pure doesn't mean Gina is pure. There is
I agree.
Right. You
know, clearly Gina wants to party.
Yes.
Like I mean, Gina's out. Of course.
Especially with Manny. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not like Gina is willing to walk into the fire knowing her brother will probably super jealous of Manny of all people, so we'll see. And now we cut back to the Babylon Club, and the two men who we saw with machine guns on the table check out a spotlight and see that they can use that spotlight as a distraction to shoot Tony. I should tell a quick story. The gentleman on the far right, as you're watching these two men, is a gentleman I worked with as an extra on Pensacola Wings of Gold in San Diego 20 years ago, I think. My friend Michael Stanley got me on because he was friends with Paul Ben Victor, who was on the show. I think he was on the show. But they got me on to do a couple of days. So I stayed down in San Diego with my friend Michael and did 2 days on the set. I recognized him immediately and talked to him about being on the set. And he just said, I didn't get to do much with Pacino because obviously you see what happens to my character, but he was on the set and it was an incredible experience. And people always come up and recognize me from that experience. And so he was very cool about it. And it was like a personal, like cool thing in my life when I just moved to LA 2 years prior to meet someone who was in one of my favorite movies, No,
that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, they now bring their machine guns onto the table, Steve, which are covered by napkins. And as the spotlight swings towards Tony, they stand up and start shooting at him brazenly in the middle of the club. Sadly, they killed poor Octavio, who was just dancing for tips. And they miss Tony as people now tear ass out of the club. They finish shooting, and as they reload, Tony uses the dead body of Octavio as cover and shoots the shooters in the legs, sending them careening over tables and shooting the lights above them. Hell of a scene, Steve.
Yeah, this very much it's this thing De Palma loves, I think less successfully in this one, where he loves the setup. He loves the slow, here are the guns, and here is the guy doing the show, and here is Tony, and here is... And in like the train station sequence in The Untouchables, that slow build setup, it works great.
Yeah.
In the chainsaw scene in the beginning of this movie, I think that slow sort of build works really well. This one works less well to me. But you can't mess. I almost feel like Tony is relieved to have violence to deal with after everything else that's happened, because this he knows how to do.
This he can navigate. You're so, I've never thought of it that way, Steve, but you're so absolutely right. Because Tony goes into immediate, I know what to do here mode. Survival mode, right? And it smartly gets out of the situation, eliminates the two shooters, and hightails it out of there with one of the shooters still shooting at him. And he gets away just as the final light fixture from above falls and incapacitates the second shooter. Tony runs out, Steve, to his car. We see he's been shot. He jumps into his Porsche and drives away on a rainy night. And then we cut to Manny in bed, who is apparently a very fast mover, because we would initially think he might be in bed with Gina, but no, he's in bed with a blonde named Miriam, and he gets a call from Tony. So was Miriam in the bed waiting for him while he was talking to Gina in the car and then dropping her off and went right home to her? What's going on here?
That's not the only timing thing that seems weird to me, which is that these two guys coming to kill Tony are sent by Frank.
Yes.
Were they sent by Frank after Tony made his move on Elvira in the booth?
Oh, good question.
Because that timing doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's too fast. Frank literally just left. Then Tony went after Gina, and then these guys were here.
Yeah.
Like, that just seems like much too fast. And I agree. There's no way that Manny gets, unless it's 2 hours later,
right,
that Tony's making this call, which I suppose it could be. But yeah, Manny's made a big move to go from Gina to the blonde that fast.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, was this all a setup for Tony? Like, did they know he was going to be at the club? Were these guys already, no matter what
But then why send the cop to make the deal with Tony?
Maybe it's to distract him. Maybe it's to keep him off.
I don't buy that.
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't.
understand.
I'm just throwing it out there. I hear what you're saying, though. It feels weird that they would already be, so quickly they'd be in the club ready to kill Tony. It's almost like they're assassins on call, so to speak.
Also, they suck as assassins.
Well, yeah.
I mean, this was your plan? Like, why? Like, they could have just walked over to Tony and shot him in the head. Like,
That's right. Much easier.
This was not a good plan.
Yeah. And now we cut to Tony with his back to us, and Chi-Chi on one side of him, and Nick the Pig on the other side, who was played by Michael P. Moran.
So Michael P. Moran, he went to Tisch School for the Arts. He acted in theater with Danny DeVito. He worked at the New York Shakespeare Festival, lots of Shakespeare, lots of theater. And then his filmography goes on forever. Like a lot of these people, first role was in 1979, his continued acting until 2003. He actually passed away in 2004, but he's in Carlito's Way, another one with Brian De Palma, Ghostbusters 2, State of Grace, Mother Night, Sleepers, A Perfect Murder, Just the Ticket. He's in all sorts of TV like Matlock, Square One, Cosby Mysteries, The Big Heist. I mean, this is like a lot of these guys we see in Scarface, which is a working actor for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And it was fun that De Palma used some of the same guys in Carlito's Way, which I thought was great.
To call Lopez, to call him at his office at 3 o'clock sharp. You tell him, we fucked up, he got away.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
We fucked up, he got away.
I like this a lot because this is one of those things I love in movies where you have characters doing something and you go, what's that about?
Right.
I don't understand. How is that going to, and then you get to have a payoff later on when you find out what it's about. And this is directly from the original film. This is exactly what happens in the original film. There's an assassination attempt on Tony, and then he tells a guy to make this phone call to the boss in order to con him, essentially. It's exactly the same thing.
I like the way this is framed, too. It's not a lot of movies that have their protagonist shot from behind in a critical scene. And to just keep the camera on him from behind as we see Nick and Chi-Chi, and he's sitting on the bed and he's giving them orders. We see that Tony is kind of messed up here and he's about to make a move, right? And as you said earlier, it's in the violence where Tony finds himself. And now he's about to make moves. This is where Tony exists and knows all the game plan really well.
100%.
All right, so Steve, we cut to Tony, Manny, and Chi-Chi walking into Lopez Motors. Frank is on the phone making some deal and then laughing about his Little League team winning a game. And then we see Ernie. This is the introduction of Ernie, played by Arnaldo Santana. He pours Bernstein, who is there with Frank, a drink.
Ernie, by the way, is played by Arnaldo Santana. He was later in Cruising. He acted with Paul Rodriguez in AKA Pablo. And then very sadly, he died at the age of 37. In 1987. And I think, it's not like he's a huge part, but he is a great presence in this film.
This is absolutely a great point you bring up, Steve, because I think this is one of the great things about the second half of the movie is you get these characters like Nick the Pig and Ernie. Even Chi-Chi gets a little bit more screen time than he did in the first section of the movie. And what's the gift of great at casting people is they find these people that do a lot with little screen time or with even little lines, but their energy and their presence is great. And I remember watching AKA Pablo because, I was a big Paul Rodriguez fan. There weren't that many Latino comics. So I remember watching that series and I liked his energy. And it was really sad when I saw the news that he had passed at such a young age. Because you're right, he has such a great energy in the film.
As far as the cop being here, I kind of wish he wasn't. I mean, I do.
Okay.
And the reason is because when you walk in and the cop is there,
Yeah.
it's obvious Frank Lopez is behind this.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's 100% obvious. And that turns down the value of the phone call that's going to come in a couple of minutes. It turns down the surprise to me.
Right, for us. But this is a whole performance for Montana, for Tony. Tony wants to do a whole Broadway production out of this whole thing. Like I think this is, as you said earlier, Steve, like this is where he exists best, in the violence. And there's almost like a command of the stage here, the way he's setting all of this up to basically make Frank admit what he did. You know?
Oh, I agree. But then why have the cop there? That makes that's what I mean. It's like Tony's whole play is made less interesting by the fact that we show up and the cop is there, because I already know that you've already revealed to me that Frank is behind this.
Right.
By having the cop there.
For me, it leads back to what Tony said earlier, like, to Manny, even though he's in his paranoia, that he's saying, you know, Bernstein, that Frank sicked Bernstein on him. And so that's why I think he's there. But I hear you. I can understand it from that point of view for sure.
Christ. Tony, what happened to you?
Tony is bloody with his arm in a sling, carrying a gun. This is a Beretta that Tony carries. And apparently this was a really specific Beretta that they wanted to use for Tony to give him some kind of look and badass look there. And then to add a little cherry on top of this satisfaction cake, he says hello to Mel.
Hello, Mel.
I think Tony is just waiting in readiness.
Yes.
For what is about to happen. My question more is like, how scared is Frank right now?
Oh, I think Frank is super scared, right? Because he made this move out of emotion. And as Mel is going to tell us later in the scene, supposedly he counseled Frank not to do this. And so this is Frank a little bit out of his element, messing with a predator, trying to surprise the predator and then failing. So I think, and the predator now has shown up in his lair, so to speak. And now Frank, a few hours ago, who was threatening Tony's life, takes on a much more caring and defiant tone.
I'm glad you made it, Tony. We're going to return the favor for you. Spades.
And then there's this weird pregnant pause, Steve, and Frank quietly asks,
What is it good for, Tony?
What, eh? Yeah, nothing. I just say paranoia.
And like I said, I don't think this setup quite makes sense to me, because all the timing seems really weird.
Right.
You know, like so Frank sends Mel to shake down Tony. Then Tony moves on Elvira, which causes Frank to also send assassins there, except the assassins are there like that second.
Yeah.
So that doesn't quite make sense. And then we have Mel saying, hey, I tried to talk Frank out of this. And it's like, when did all this happen? And now Mel's back. I mean, like, it just, I think it is, you know what, it's surprising to me. How come Frank doesn't know Tony didn't get killed? You know?
Oh, Frank doesn't know, I guess, because these guys, he hasn't heard anything, right? So he doesn't know if Tony's been killed or not. So yeah, he was waiting for the call.
Which he's about to get.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, the phone rings, and after a few rings of uncomfortable silence and no one picking up the phone.
You gonna answer, Frank?
It must be Elvira. She got mad after we left the club, you know.
I tell her you're not here, okay?
No, it's all right.
He covers his ears suspiciously in a quiet room, Steve, to keep other people from hearing what's being said on the other line. And of course, as Steve said already, we know that this is Nick the Pig calling to tell Frank what Tony told him to say. And I'm fascinated by the fact that Frank can't figure out that this is not the same people he sent. I mean, because these must be people he knows he would send these people to kill them. So, but Frank tries to play it off that Elvira's on the other line, but Tony knows that Frank is lying to him.
This is, as we said, right out of the original film. I think this is a great setup. I love, because it's a perfect moment in the sense, as I already said, when they set it up, you don't know why Tony's doing it. And the moment that Frank lies, you go, oh, Tony's got him. Yeah. Like I think it's a great reveal.
And Steve, you know, as a director, you're looking at this, all is happening in one room, right? And the room is decorated so interestingly with that mural in the background. Tony is sitting in that suit at the front of the table, the head of the table. Mel is on the right side of the table as we're looking at it with his arms folded, covering his belly. And then Frank is up there, standing there, and he is the one that is in a position of submissiveness, even though Tony's the one that's sitting down and looking at it. So it's a fascinating setup, the way the camera is moving as this is all happening and building the tension.
It's all right. We'll be home in an hour. Don't worry.
So Tony knows that Frank is lying to him, and we have this exchange.
Hey, Frank. You a piece of shit.
Oh, Tony, what are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about, you fucking cockroach.
What are you talking about? Come on, you listen to me, huh?
Do you know what a hassa is, Frank? That's a pig that don't fly straight.
I love Tony bringing back the Yiddish phrase.
Yes.
I think that's so great and so fun. I also, man, watching Robert Loggia collapse. It's like I do wish we had a Cuban American or someone that that was a little closer for this role. But he is a great actor.
Yes.
And the slow build. I mean, I think he knew he was in trouble when Tony walked in.
As soon as he walked in. Yes.
Yeah. But then the slow, like, I think I can get out of this. And then the phone call. And I think at this moment, the realization that he's been trapped is great.
Tony loves to play scenes out, and he loves to set things up for the scenes. His little crack at the beginning, when he says to him, "Oh, did you fix the game?" That's his little shot to say that Frank is a cheater. Frank does nefarious stuff behind the scenes, And so when he gets to this point, this has been building. And when he calls him a cockroach, which is a thing to insult with in the Latino community back then, there is a real feeling like he is just this kind of lesser than human thing now, and how Tony's looking at it. And you're right, bringing in the Hassa thing to turn it around on Frank, who was doling out all this advice, and here he is violating his own advice.
Why the fuck would I hurt you? I brought you in. So we had a few differences, huh? No big deal. I gave you your start. I was the one who believed in you.
I stayed loyal to you. I made what I could on the side, but I never turned you, Frank. Never. For you. A man ain't got his word. It's a cockroach.
We said just a few minutes ago we were talking about Tony's balls.
Yes.
And that Tony's big move is I'm going to come at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing about Frank Lopez is that he has created, to some degree, as he came up, the illusion that he had balls.
Yes.
So people believe that he would come after them. And he would come after them with other people.
Right.
Not himself, not him personally. And I think what's happened now is that with Tony, it's for real. It's not just you say, I'm going to take you out. It's that if you push Tony, Tony will take you out. Frank has pushed forward that he is powerful.
Yeah.
But now we're getting to the place where we're seeing just how goddamn weak he is, because he's already negotiating. He's already trying to comfort him. He's already trying to make it a little bit lighter and get away with it, because he is not Tony Montana and he doesn't lead with his balls.
No, what he leads with is his money. And that's what I think. This is rewatching the film for our conversation. This scene stood out to me as a kind of subtle commentary on class warfare. Like, Frank strikes me as this guy who was born into a lot of money. And there are drug dealers who are born into rich families who become drug dealers and that. And Frank hasn't worked a day in his life, in my opinion, from what I see from him. And picking someone like Omar, someone who's got that kind of attitude or mentality, that elitist, condescending type of mentality, you see it here. And so Tony is something that he can't control, because a person who's that driven and hungry, who is also intelligent in doing the things he's doing and has a good instinct for danger, these are the things that he cannot account for. And so Tony gets the better of it. And Frank does what he does. Once he's essentially been emasculated, he reverts to the crying. It's no different than Bernie Birnbaum in Miller's Crossing, right? Because Bernie is really powerful when Bernie's on top. He's condescending. He makes cracks. He's very sociopathic about how he treats human beings. But the second he's in danger, here come the waterworks. And the same thing with Frank, as we're about to see here. So, yeah, it implies that he's essentially a unit.
Now, do something, will you?
It's your tree, Frank. You're sitting in it.
And Steve, I imagine this is not how Mal anticipated the night was going to end up. With Frank out of options and Tony sitting there with a weapon trained on Frank and him in some danger.
Mel is such an opportunist.
Yes,
That's, Mel will give Frank the illusion that there's some loyalty to Frank. And if he had worked for Tony, he would have given some illusion that there was some loyalty to Tony. But he sees which way the wind's blowing in this scene, and that's it.
Yep. That's why he doesn't make a move. Exactly. Nope. Tony Cox is gone.
Please give me a second chance, huh, Tony? You do that, please. You give me a second chance. I give you $10 million, Tony.
He starts to move towards Tony, and Tony pulls back and moves away from him in his rolling chair, almost like he's disgusted that this person would come towards him. It's reminiscent of RoboCop when that nuclear waste happens to that guy and he tries to grab Kurtwood Smith. It's almost like that. Frank starts to cry now, pleading, and then he offers him Elvira like she's some kind of party favor to be passed around.
Elvira, you want Elvira? You're going to have her. I go away, I'm going to disappear, Tony. You'll never see me again, Tony. Please, Tony.
And then big Frank Lopez, who had threatened Tony's life no more than a few hours ago, descends to his knees in a prayer pose and begs for his life and crawls to kiss Tony's feet. This is amazing.
This is exactly what makes this movie work, I think, because I don't like Tony Montana. I mean, I'm not going to go like, I want to spend that much time with Tony Montana. But in this moment, I like Frank Lopez so much less.
Yes.
That I'm like, I mean, when he offers up Elvira, it's just like, oh, fucking kill this guy. And so even though I don't like Tony Montana and I think he's a bad guy, I am now with him in this moment of wanting to get rid of fucking Frank Lopez. And that's what keeps me in this film, you know?
Yeah, the film deludes you that Tony has principles or morals, right? Because of how other people react to Tony. But Tony has been just as much of a cheat on the side. Like you said, you need a couple mil, I make a move here, I make a move there. You know, he's been doing this stuff behind Frank's back. You know, so he's got his own thing that he's been doing. But the way the film frames him, he has the upper hand here, moral-wise and obviously violence-wise in the situation. You know, so I think it's an interesting thing the film does. Because, I love him here. I love Tony here. Because as Frank is down on the ground and he tries to kiss his feet, as I was saying, Tony stands up and yells at him out of disgust. And I wonder where this disgust comes from. Is it because he's watching another man beg for his life and he thinks it's, as you said, you got to lead with your balls, so seeing a person who looks like they have no balls? Or is there an element undercurrent of like, how could I have ever given my loyalty to a guy like this?
I don't think he ever gave his loyalty to a guy like this.
That's fair.
And in fact, I wanted to go back to this line. He says, I stayed loyal. I made what I could on the side, but I never turned on you.
Yeah.
That does not sound like I stayed loyal to me. Mm-hmm. Is that he's saying like, because he said I didn't turn on you means, I think to Tony that just means I didn't kill you.
Right.
You know, I didn't take you out.
I didn't set you up. Yes.
Yeah. But if you're a drug dealer working for the big drug dealer and you're making drug deals on the side, that is not loyal.
Right.
Like that is working outside of the system. I don't think we said it in that very first meeting and in the scene in the club where Frank is trying to seduce Tony, that we're both going, we didn't ever think Tony was fully, you know, like he's always scheming to get to the top.
Yes.
Frank is a parenthesis in his career. He knows he's moving past him. He always has.
Yeah. Frank is a stepping stone. He's been saying that since he saw Elvira come down the elevator, right?
Yeah.
Don't kill me, please.
I won't kill you.
And then Frank thinks he's safe.
Yep.
And thanks Tony by trying to kiss his feet again. But Tony pulls his foot away, steps backward, and as he walks away, he tells Manolo,
Shoot that piece of chip.
No.
R.I.P. Frank Lopez. Let me ask you, though, do you think it was always the plan to have Manny shoot Frank? Or was this kind of what it led to in this moment and Tony improvised and told Manolo to shoot him?
To me, it feels more improvised. I don't think Manny knew. I don't think Tony told Manny what the plan is before they walked into this room.
I think you're 100% right. I think you're 100% right. Yeah.
I think Tony is, I mean, maybe Tony knows. I mean, Tony knew he was going to kill Frank regardless walking into this scene. But I think Tony was very curious how things would go with the phone call. And then he sees the cop in there and he's like, and I think he likes fucking with Frank went with him begging not to kill him. And he says, okay, I ain't going to kill you. He likes giving Frank that moment of hope before Manny kills him. Exactly. But no, I don't think Manny knew shit about what was going to happen.
That's a great point. Because I mean, like you look at the opening of the film and you see when they do the stuff with the Colombians, it's Tony who is telling everybody what the plan is, right? So that's almost like preseason for a basketball team. We're figuring each other out, who goes where, who does what. By the time we get to this scene, they're a well-oiled machine. And they play off their point guard, who is Tony Montana. So yeah, I'm sure they didn't talk about anything, but they knew what to do in this moment and how to follow Tony's lead.
Actually, I want to focus a bit on point guard because I actually think that's a great point, which is that because again, Michael Corleone is not playing things by ear.
No,
he has everything worked out in advance to the most minute. You think about the murders at the end of Godfather 1, that is a fucking plan that he has worked out in detail. Mm-hmm. Michael is like the manager, the coach, the leader.
Yeah.
Tony is in the room looking at the players, calling the play.
Yeah.
Tony is not, he doesn't want to plan everything to the most minute detail because that doesn't give him the room to maneuver and improvise within the situation, which is kind of what he's good at. So I think he on purpose puts himself in situations, whereas Frank would never put himself in the room. Frank doesn't want to be in the room where anything's happening, but Tony does.
Yeah. I think Michael Corleone is like Bill Belichick. And I think if I go for NFL terms and Montana as Tony's like Brett Favre, improvising with all the skill.
Yeah.
And as Steve was alluding to, he's curious about what happens next. Well, here's what happens next. Tony turns to Mel now. I was thinking, Steve, that maybe he was thinking that if he just sat still, the predator would leave him alone. You know how they tell you to stand when a bear, like don't move with certain bears or animals come near you? It feels like almost like that. Like Mel is just sitting there and he's like, if I don't make him move a muscle, maybe he'll leave me alone. But it doesn't work.
I actually think it's almost beyond that. I don't think I'm not sure, but I don't think he might even conceive that it's possible that he can get killed because he's a cop.
Right. Good point.
Like, I think he thinks there's some sort of magical armor around him. And it's like, okay, I witnessed this and now I'm just going to switch teams to Tony and I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing.
Right. If I play it cool, we'll work something out and then I'll get out of this room.
I told him it didn't make any sense clipping you when we had you working for us. You wouldn't listen. Got hot tonight. Not the broad, you know? Fucked up.
You too, Mel. You fucked up.
Don't go too far, Tony.
I ain't not, Mel. You are.
It is shocking. I don't expect this to happen. Well, and it's also, Tony doesn't give a shit about consequences.
Oh, no.
I mean, you know, like the game that Tony is playing, he's 2 moves ahead.
Yes.
But he ain't 6 moves ahead.
Well, Tony likes to dole out punishment.
Yeah.
If you haven't adhered to his worldview, then you no longer get to hide behind the protections that you think you have. He has this kind of sanctimonious or righteousness to his violence. And I'm not saying it's correct, right? I'm just saying this is how he thinks.
Right.
And in that moment, when he says to him, don't go too far, and he says, I'm not Mel, you are. And essentially saying you went too far by trying to take advantage of me. You went too far by trying to get those tickets. You went too far by thinking you could step on me, thinking I was just, as he says later in the thing with Sosa, a maricon off the boat. Like there's these things. When he feels disrespected, then all bets are off. And if you could stand up to Sosa, what's a cop in frickin' Miami? It's not anywhere near, right, for him. So him shooting him like a surprise like that, I think is, and right in the gut, I think is perfect, dude. It's just perfect.
You know what I just realized? There's really a perfect, again, we keep talking about The Godfather, but there's a Godfather comparison here because we kill an important cop in The Godfather as well.
Yes.
Which is, are they going to kill McCluskey because McCluskey is guarding Sollozzo after he tries to hit Vito? And there's the scene where Michael suggests it, and they're talking about how Michael's angry because this guy punched him in the face.
Right.
And Michael's like, no, this is business. I'm not angry. This isn't about vengeance. This is about protecting our father and dealing with the issues that are coming up. Yeah. Michael doesn't do it. He doesn't kill McCluskey because he's angry. At least that's how it seems.
Right.
It's just business.
Well,
whereas Tony, it's about emotion and the moment, you know?
Yeah. And I'll add another similarity to what you're saying with this situation. Because, I've seen those comparisons that this scene is similar to McCluskey and Sollozzo, but I'll add even more to what you're saying, Steve, which I think is a great point to highlight, is this, what we're going to find out now in this exchange is very similar to Michael's mentality. He's like, we're talking about a corrupt cop, right? Where the papers would want to talk about this. So in essence, by being a corrupt cop, you have removed this idea that society has given you that because you are a cop, you should be untouchable. The second you violate your oath to being a cop, then you become someone who no longer gets that protection. And Tony himself is about to walk that same path in dealing with Mel that Michael walked in dealing with McCluskey.
Can't shoot a cop. Whoever said you was one?
Wait a minute! Now you let me go, I'll fix this up.
Sure, Mel. Maybe you can handle yourself one of them first-class tickets to the resurrection.
I think it's an amazing line. And Mel in a last moment of defiance.
Son of a bitch.
So long, Mel. Have a good trip.
Fuck you!
This is a great death. Honestly.
I agree.
Right?
I mean, we really don't like. I like him. He might be who I like least in the whole movie on some levels, even though they're probably worse people. Like his casualness about his corruption is just terrible.
Yeah.
But again, Michael wouldn't kill him. Michael would figure out how can I use him.
Yes. Right. That's the difference. 100%, Steve. 100%. Because he would put Mel in his pocket.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah.
You're
1,000,000% right.
You think about the senator in Godfather 2, who is so insulting and terrible. And obviously, Michael wants to take this guy down. But it's not about, yes, he does take him down in the most horrible fucking way. But that's not the point. The point is now that senator is in his pocket.
Right.
That's what he wants. He doesn't want revenge. He wants power.
Right. Tony. It's funny, though, because both Tony and Michael, by the end of the movie, are left, by end of their respective movies, are left ruining the decisions that they made, killing someone they love, which I think is fascinating too.
Because they're both evil people.
Yes. But yeah, whether you rush to the evil or you quietly walk and methodically plan your way to the evil, you end up in the same place. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And frankly, Michael's probably more evil than Tony.
Yes. Because Michael knows what he's doing. Michael knows very clearly what he's doing.
Calmly deciding to kill that prostitute in Godfather 2. That is if Michael went through with killing those kids to me. That is, it's a prostitute. It's an innocent person who you're murdering just to stage a scene to manipulate a dude. That is fucking evil.
Yeah. And killing your brother.
Not to mention killing your brother.
Yeah, exactly. And Tony starts to leave. And Manny stops Tony and asks him, what about Ernie? Who Ernie probably thought, oh my God, I'm getting out of this. But no, Manny stops to ask him and says, basically, what about homework for the weekend, teacher? And Tony stops and turns to stare at Ernie, who is sweating buckets. And after a long pause, because Tony loves the drama.
You want a job, Ernie?
And Ernie looks away for a moment to compose himself and says,
sure, Tony.
And then Chi-Chi walks in, all happy for Ernie.
Hey, man, you got a job.
Hey, Tony. Thanks.
Again, Steve, this is, to me, why I love the movie, is these little moments of levity amidst to let the air out of the tension. And this moment with Ernie is an easy throwaway scene that you don't even need to have in the movie. But I think it's important, an element to make you like Tony a little bit, even when he's doling out violence like this, and add a little levity to all the characters so that when they die, and Chi-Chi's death is pretty brutal, and Manny's death are pretty brutal, like you feel that, right? And so I love this.
You know what's crazy to me, and I'm just thinking through it right now, is that there are so few positive moments in this movie where I actually feel kind of happy.
Yes.
Like most even really dark movies will have some laughs and have some joy, and there'll be some nice things. There's almost nothing. I mean, we go from the interrogation to the detention center to the, the murder to the Colombians it's just like one rough thing after another. So when we give Ernie a job, it's joyful. I mean, like it's literally to me might be the happiest moment in the entire film, which isn't saying that much.
And I think, very great point, Steve. And I think it also gives a little bit of positivity to Tony, because Tony's not a bloodthirsty madman. And somebody else might have killed Ernie because fuck it, I don't want any witnesses. But Ernie didn't do anything. Ernie didn't try to fuck Tony over. Ernie didn't try to get 2 first-class tickets to London for him and his wife. Ernie was just doing his job, working.
Yeah.
Right? And so Ernie's innocent in all this. And Tony's not going to kill an innocent, as we see throughout the whole movie.
Yep.
We cut to Tony's bloody hand in close-up pulling a sheet off of Elvira, who wakes up to see Tony in his bloody condition. By the way, this is a great wake-up acting from Michelle Pfeiffer. Much love there. That's not easy.
God, what's happened? Where's Frank?
What do you think? Come on. Que yo estoy. You come with me.
He pats her leg, walks out, leaving her covering herself with her sheet, almost like she's been violated herself. And it feels, Steve, like to the victor go the spoils, but it still feels like she's kind of been passed on from Frank to Tony.
I keep going back to this. I really think this is the area of the film that it just doesn't quite work for me with her character. And I think what they're going for to some degree, you know, the idea of the gun mall who goes with the toughest guy,
right,
and that she is angry and, you know, she has this kind of combative character, and now he has killed essentially her man, and now he is her man. But I don't feel emotionally connected to it. I don't, it's just not really working for me. And I can't quite put my finger on why.
Yeah.
But I don't understand. There's just so much where Elvira's emotions, I go, what's going on with her? I don't quite understand.
Right.
You know?
That's a fair point. Yeah. Like, yeah, maybe if we'd had more scenes with them in the flirtation process, so you start to buy their connection a bit more, so that when this moment happens, you know that she's developed feelings for him, which is hinted at, you know, certainly in the movie, but she's been resisting it.
It's real thin.
Yeah.
There really isn't, even in movies, you know, where people have really difficult relationships, you can have moments of connection where you're like, oh my God, like there's no, oh my God moment. These people are connected.
Right.
You know,
because we have that with Manny multiple times throughout the movie.
Sure.
'Cause that's the real romance of the movie. It's Manny and Tony.
Yeah.
And so this is not quite as powerful. So I hear you definitely. And as Tony stands there in Frank's downstairs living room, got the audacity to go into Frank's house to take his woman for him, he stares at a blimp flying by in the dawn sky with an electric message that reads, "The world is yours," as we hear the theme song pounding to underscore the moment here in our ears, Steve.
This is the whole fatal flaw of the movie, you know, is the belief that the world should be yours.
Yeah.
That in America, it's possible. It's not just part of the world. It's not just Miami's world. It's saying everything is yours. And what that means is there is no end. You can never get to a place where you can be happy because your goal is only everything or nothing.
Right.
And so that means that Tony will inevitably push too hard and go too far. This is the tragedy of the film.
It's the perversion of the American dream.
Exactly.
Right? Because the American dream, they're always like, you can come and be anything in America. And for him, he has always felt this belief that he was destined for more. And this is what drives him in every moment, both positive and negative, to where he ends up, you know, in all his relationships. By the way, the world is yours. Pan Am Airlines is what we're seeing there. Pan Am is actually the rival of Trans World Airlines, which was what Howard Hughes owned, and Howard Hughes produced the original Scarface. So it's a little bit of an interesting moment for the Pan Am stuff, because there's later in the film when Tony is on the New York dock after everything goes wrong with Alberto and Gutierrez, he's calling and you see the Pan Am logo there as well in the background. So I'm wondering if this is a little bit of a playful shot at Hughes. But Steve, we can't help but feel that Tony has it all. He has his empire. He's removed Frank. He's got his Sosa connection. He now has Elvira. And he has a dedicated crew to carry out what he needs to do. And he probably doesn't even have to pay the cops anymore. And we see him standing there as the camera pulls away and Elvira is behind him hurriedly packing up her stuff in the upper floor. And we fade to black at the 1 hour, 43 minute and 30 second mark. And to me, this is the moment when I realized that Brian De Palma was directing an epic. This is an intermission scene.
I mean, it is the transitional moment. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because if you put a intermission music here for 10 minutes, it would have fit, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But we don't have that because we cut to an 80s montage, Steve, where Tony and Sosa are in full success mode now. We see this is the typical 80s montage. We see stacks of money being counted, Sosa and Tony laughing, bags of money being taken to the bank in broad daylight. Tony opening multiple businesses, Gina getting her own beauty salon as Manny and her exchange a look, and even more bags of money going into the bank, much to the exasperated look of the bank manager. Tony and Elvira's wedding, where Gina and Manny exchange another look as Tony and Elvira kiss. I don't see his mom there at that wedding. The whole wedding party walks down to see so Tony can show them his pet tiger, and then a massive reveal of a portrait of Tony and Elvira. Tony buying Gina a dress. Why is he the one going? But all right. And it ends with Elvira doing coke bumps, drinking, and pushing her hair back as the camera comes in closer to reveal her looking older and unhappier. And all of this is set to the theme song of the movie, Scarface, Push It to the Limit, written by Giorgio Moroder and Pete Bellotte, and performed by American singer Paul Engman, who became famous for singing and making the official song of the 33rd Olympic Games in Los Angeles in 1984, the song called Reach Out. So,
all right. Well, that's good to know. We actually have a question from one of our patrons from Under Makivar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And what's funny is he's right on the same thing as we are, because his question is about Godfather 2. He says Francis Ford Coppola deliberately stripped Michael of his moral and redeeming qualities in Godfather 2, aiming to portray him as a monstrous figure consumed by power. Yet Michael's genius and tragic complexity made him an iconic, almost godlike figure for many, particularly young men who overlooked his moral descent. To what extent does Scarface glamorize or critique the gangster lifestyle through Tony Montana, and does the distinction matter? Despite Tony's heinous acts, arguably more brutal than Michael's, his larger-than-life persona has cemented him as one of cinema's coolest characters. How does this shape the film's legacy, and what does it reveal about audience perceptions of anti-heroes?
Fantastic question.
I agree.
Michael is who we would like to be. Intelligent, smart, patient, knowledgeable, methodical, and getting the upper hand and going into the levels of politics, and eventually, of course, in Godfather 3, going in with the Vatican, for God's sakes, and being able to navigate these choppy waters and doing what needs to be done. There is a respect factor, even though he does some abhorrent stuff, as Steve mentioned earlier, with the prostitute, with other people, with his brother, slapping Kay, all of these things, right? These are the things that make Michael aspirational for people who watch. For Tony is much more who a majority of people are, which are from lower income, fighting to be heard, fighting to be seen. When you feel you're destined for more, pushing for it, trying to achieve things in life, going up against the system that's corrupt inherently, you being ridiculed for thinking you can go up against the system and trying to achieve things and putting your balls out there. And so I think that's why he appeals the way he does, because there is enough in the film to show you that Tony is a terrible person and does terrible things. He kills his best friend. He has a terrible relationship with his mother. He corrupts his sister. Yes, there's a moment where he saves the wife and kids and Gutierrez in front of the UN and all that. But then he shoots Manny within minutes later in the movie. So these are these things. He does terrible things throughout. But there's something about the fact that he's this bold, this desperate, this driven, this passionate, and has this belief in himself that it radiates a coolness that I think does appeal to a lot of men, young men who watch the movie and want to have this kind of success story. It's what is that phrase where you live fast and leave a good looking
leave a good looking corpse?
Yeah, that's exactly what Tony's doing. Even though he does get to 50 and complain about the hair on his breasts, it is absolutely the appeal of Tony Montana.
I think what's interesting about this film as compared to The Godfather or Godfather 2 or compared to Goodfellas is it's like what I said just a minute ago about Ernie being like the one bright spot is it's missing the fun part. Is that in Goodfellas, part of it is I always wanted to be a gangster is you see it's not just the power and the violence, it's the money and the success and the clothes and the cars and going to the Copacabana and you go, wow, being a gangster is awesome. So it has a seductive element.
Yeah.
The Godfather films have a seductive element, largely, I think, because of Vito and the power of his personality. Yeah. And you meet Robert De Niro and you see the things that he's doing and that he's going up against Fanucci. He's a bad guy. And so in some way, there's a positive element to the way The Godfather is established. And you end up really caring about the family.
Yes.
So then it's the contrast between the caring about the family or the fun in Goodfellas with the violence that puts you into that moral quandary. In Scarface, there isn't a good part. You know what I mean?
This is the only fun. is this montage we just spoke about.
This is it. Yeah. This is all the fun. Yeah. And so what I think, and why I think this question is really good is he asks, what does this reveal about the perceptions of audiences' perceptions of anti-heroes? And it's like, well, if you're not getting seduced by going to Copacabana like in Goodfellas, or getting seduced by Vito in Godfather 2, then the only thing that's seducing you is Tony's violence, his aggressiveness, his sense of vengeance, his sense of wanting to push back, his ego. And so what it's tapping into with the audience is not your desire for success and fun or family or justice. It's your desire for violence and vengeance and anger and righteous indignation against the society or anything that's keeping you down. That's where you're connecting. Is you're going, yeah, fuck you. I feel like fuck you too. I want to kill people too. I feel like vengeance too. That's the thing it's inspiring in the audience, which is, also partially why this is not my movie. Because I don't have those feelings. And so I don't get off on watching Tony have vengeance against people. It's not my thing.
Yeah. Whereas I kind of do.
Well, you do.
That within me. But it's also, and I will make a little bit of an allusion to the 90s in the WWE. You had Stone Cold, you had The Rock. Their attitudes, and Triple H, their attitudes were against management. And they were these people who were constantly hard done by the things they were experiencing, but they also indulged their much more cooler sides, their violent sides, their revenge sides. And there's an element of that to Tony, that he is an anti-hero in a way, because there's not a lot of things he's heroic about other than Gutierrez and the wife and the children in the car. Everything else, he's not really that heroic, right? He is driven to achieve the things he's driven, and he wants what he wants. But there's a way he goes about it that I think appeals to a lot of people who want to go against the system, go against their boss, go against someone who is fucking them over and never letting them kind of embrace their success or giving them any kind of credit for success. So you have to go and take it. And so there is a fighting against the system element of Scarface that isn't in the Godfather films that I think is one of the big reasons why Tony appeals to people, because you feel that in a subconscious way that he is fighting against the system as a small guy against the big corporation, And I love those movies, as we've documented on this show many times.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I know we're going slow and I apologize, but I do have to interrupt because except Tony's not fighting against the system.
He is a system against Frank, the government, the cops, and then eventually Sosa. He is
Tony has not fighting. When you say fighting against the system, like you're saying, okay, there's a corrupt corporation,
yes,
and we're going to stop the corrupt corporation. There's not because that's the right thing to do.
Fighting against the system. I think what you're trying to do is get the best of the corporation. You're trying to defeat the corporation.
Right, but most of the time, fighting against the system means the system is evil, and I want to get rid of the evil.
No, I disagree with you. I think the system itself is evil. Yes, I go that far with you, but I want to get rid of the system. Essentially, what Tony wants to do by taking control of the system, he wants to make the system in his image, right?
No, he wants the power.
Yes.
So this is in no way any heroic character fighting against a corrupt system. Yeah, there's nothing of that here.
I disagree with you 1,000%. I think he is absolutely a character. I don't know about heroic. I would agree with you like heroic, but I think he is, in his mind, he is a character who is fighting against, he is a person who's fighting against the system here. And we will see moments as this movie goes along from this section forward where he speaks about the corruption of the system, speaks about how things are set up to undercut him, and the hypocrisy of the system of America against an immigrant like him who's trying to succeed in a corrupt business, obviously, but still the idea of how the system is set up to fuck immigrants over who are trying to achieve too much too quickly in this country. And that is an element throughout the whole second half of the movie.
I definitely agree that that's part of it, but let's table this discussion until we get to Tony in the bathtub, because then we definitely have to revisit this.
Exactly. Well, now we cut to Tony talking to the bank manager, who looks suspiciously like Tim Daly in a a gray wig, and we had seen him in the montage. And this is Dennis Holohan, Steve. Tony and the banker basically discuss how much Tony is bringing in and how Dennis's character needs to raise the rates to keep taking his money because of IRS regulations.
Tony, sweetheart, we're not a wholesale operation. We're a legitimate bank. The more cash you give me, the harder it is for me to rinse.
As I was saying, was it the government coming in and take their piece of the pie? Manny keeps insisting that they go with someone else, but the manager does win Tony over after some haggling and some harsh words between them by appealing to his sense of security. And after the manager leaves, we see the gaudiness of this house, Steve, in focus, the gold, the black walls, the red velvet walls, and the carpet throughout. But this is Tony feeling like he is being hard done by the things that are happening.
Fucking wasp whore. Talking to me like I saw maricon come over on a boat.
And maricon, of course, is a derogatory word for a homosexual in the Spanish language.
So I think this scene is great because it so exposes the hypocrisy of not only our world and the banker, because he is obviously, not only is he corrupt, it's like the cop. That's his business.
Yes, right.
Tony is not the first guy he's laundered money for.
No.
He's laundered money a lot. But it also exposes the hypocrisy of Tony, who will always feel put upon and taken from, even when he's the boss.
Yeah.
So when he's working for Frank, Frank's not paying him enough. He's not, I'm sure he has all those feelings. I'm doing all the real work. But now when he has people working for him, they're trying to rip me off.
Right.
It's such a classically hypocritical thing that happens to people when they achieve money or power, is they start to behave exactly like the people they hated, who they wanted to get the power from.
Right. And they see themselves as someone who is trying to achieve things against the odds in their perverted sense of self about where they fit in the system that they are participating in.
I personally find it very distasteful when extremely powerful or wealthy people claim the position of victim.
Oh, yeah. We see the first of many times that we will see Tony snort coke in the movie from this section forward in the movie. By the way, Al Pacino said in a 2015 interview that he still believes he has stuff from this film stuck in his nose. And that making this movie altered his nasal passages forever. There's been a long-held rumor that he snorted actual coke, but that is not true. He never actually snorted coke making.
Do we know what they're snorting?
It's baby powder.
Oof.
Yeah. So, and not a lot of it, just a little bit, but yeah, that's what he's snorting.
Which we now know, by the way, is cancer-causing.
Yes. So thank God we haven't heard anything like that with Al Pacino.
I tell you what, man, you don't need that smiling motherfucker. I'm telling you. We should talk to this Jewish guy, Saddlebone. Okay? He's got his own exchange. He charges 4% at the most. And he's connected.
When Tony hears that he's connected, immediately Tony turns off. Because Tony, we find out, does not like the mob and calls them guineas. And this is an interesting situation because we have not heard the mafia at all come up in this movie, Steve.
Yeah.
But here in this moment, we see that Tony not only hates Colombians, he also has an issue with the mob and Italians.
Tony is not a guy who makes friends easily. That's my feeling.
As Sosa once said, there's not a lot of lying in you, Tony. There's a lot of judgment in Tony, though, for sure.
But I find this all a little bit confusing because it's like he's resisting the banker deal, but then he resists the deal with Seidelbaum. But then at some point he ends up in the deal with Seidelbaum, but I don't quite understand it's just all a little bit fuzzy.
I agree with you. The Seidelbaum stuff to me is something to criticize of the movie because it seems like a convenient plot device to get to where they want to get to with Sosa and what it leads to the death of Tony at the end of the movie. I think the Seidelbaum thing should have absolutely been established a little bit better than it was in this movie, for sure. We cut to a car coming through the gate on his property, and it's a hint of the level of security that Tony has here, Steve. By the way, Tony Montana's opulent mansion is actually a place called El Furedes, which is located in Montecito, California.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, near here. Yeah, you could totally see Tony's paranoia growing as the security grows in this sequence.
Right, because as we said, the montage is the only happy moment of the movie. The rest of the movie is him fighting to achieve the things that he wants to achieve, and once he gets there, being paranoid about the things he's going to lose once he achieves the things that he's achieved.
You sweep the house this month? The cars?
Yeah, I told you about it.
Manny tries to push back, but Tony's not having it.
We're not the only dopers living on the block, okay? Remember that. That fucking truck, that could be anybody and anything. It could be a cable company.
You know something? You got some fucking attitude. You know that?
And he almost becomes a little bit of a coach or an angry point guard or a quarterback.
For someone who's in charge of my security, I'll tell you something. Well, here. Get the keys to the front door. Go down there.
Look,
give him the fucking thing.
I'm just trying to say something, okay?
What?
You're spending a lot of money on this counter surveillance stuff.
I don't give a fuck.
It's already 12% of our adjusted gross. 12%. It's not peanuts.
I don't give a fuck. It makes me sleep good at night. That's what counts.
So he just was pissed at the banker for the percent of money he was taking to do the exchange. And when the banker was saying, to do this securely, I need more, and he was pissed. But the 12% on security for the mansion is he needs to do. I also keep thinking about the relationship with Manny, because Manny believes that he is Tony's most trusted advisor, junior partner, and the person who can speak truth to power to some degree, right?
Yes.
To
the only
Tony.
person, yeah.
Does Tony believe that about Manny?
No, which is why he says to Manny, you're a junior partner, to insult him in the bath, which we're going to get to that scene. It's to take him down a peg. So yeah, no, I don't think Tony sees Manny as his equal. And even later when the Cytobomb thing comes up and they discuss it, Tony says to him, I'm going to do it because you only focus on the women. You know that. You're not good with money. You're not good with these kinds of things. So he's making it very clear where he sees Manny in the power structure of the Tony Montana company, so to speak. Now we cut to a TV built into a bar and stand next to 4 security cameras, and a commercial is playing for Florida National Trust, telling us how Miami is changing. And this is the same bank that Tony has his money in, that this banker just visited him from. And we see, Steve, that Tony is in this massive circular bathtub watching the commercial with champagne behind him, a cigar there, the remote.
We've been putting your money to work for 75 years, building a more prosperous Miami. Count on us being here tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. That's because for 75 years you've been fucking everybody. Somebody should do something about this horse. Right? Charging me 10 points on my money.
And I think of Scorsese's comments about the film industry when I hear what he has to say.
There's no loss anymore.
Forget it, man.
I mean, anything goes.
They've been around 1,000 years, okay? They got all the angles figured out.
You know what capitalism is? Getting fucked.
We're having a philosophical discussion about capitalism in this bathtub between Manny and Tony right now.
So, first of all, that is a ridiculous bathtub.
It's an amazing bathtub.
Second of all, I think you could divide the world into 2 groups of people: the people who want other people in the room with them when they're taking a bath.
Yes.
And the people who don't. I fall into the latter category. I don't tend to want to have complicated conversations about geopolitics and economics while I'm in a big bubble bath.
Yeah.
That is not my thing. But apparently that's Tony's thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, again, I'll restate the hypocrisy of, dude, you're sitting in a giant mansion complaining about capitalism. Like you literally went from dishwashing whatever a year ago to here. Like you have nothing to fucking complain about, at all.
But you're putting a perspective on Tony that Tony is not capable of.
Yes.
Right? And I think if Tony had all the money in the world, he would still need to find something to be a victim about, because victimhood is absolutely the foundational piece of Tony Montana. And even when he's achieved things, instead of becoming like satisfied in the things he's achieved and taking a moment to really kind of appreciate what he's done, and as you said, look back at his accomplishments and where he's come from, and that he's in this bathtub with a beautiful woman there who's his wife, his best friend is sitting there. It's instead of it being a time to like, look what we've done, look what we've accomplished. It's like, look at these guys who are trying to fuck me over. Look at these guys who are lying to the American people and lying about what they do. Now, I think there is a point here that the film is trying to make, is that you want to judge, and Tony says this later, look at the bad guy. You'll never see a bad guy like this. It's easy to judge the overt criminals in our society who come from lower income situations. It's people seem to have an issue going after corporations with the same kind of fervor, and even doling out sentences and punishment with the same kind of length as they give out to people who come from lower income classes and commit crimes and what have you. And you would say, well, do they really kill people? You could argue that corporations kill people all the time, in the thousands, hundreds of thousands, and sometimes millions, depending on the decisions they make in convenient ways. Right? The Sackler family with the opioid crisis, are they life in prison? Are they on death penalty? No, they're not on death row. Meanwhile, the things they did killed so many people. The things they ignored in order to achieve profits killed so many people. So I think there is a hypocrisy that the film is trying to highlight. The problem is that Montana is an unreliable narrator in this whole thing. So the message gets lost, but the message is there of what I think Oliver Stone in the film is trying to say.
I see, and I think the first thing you say, I agree with. The message gets lost. The whole time you're speaking, I'm just sitting there going, "Amen, preach, brother." I mean, I like everything you said. I couldn't agree more with. Right. But it's also why the Godfather moment of senators and congressmen don't kill people, Michael. Who's being by leave? That nails what you're talking about.
Right.
This fails to do what you're talking about. Like, I 100% agree. I mean, we have lobbyists spending millions of dollars and putting money into politicians' pockets. But if a dude gives a cop $50 to get out of a ticket, he should go to jail for bribery.
Right.
Like the level of scale of what happened to the people, you know, who from Enron, or what happened, as you said, the Sacklers, Jesus Christ, like they are literally drug dealers. You can see the emails where they say, "Hey, we need to push this one harder. Let's give some more freebies out." You know, like and continual denial about the addictiveness of those drugs. Like there is the size of the double standard and the protection that wealthy people get against what could be far more severe criminal activities are huge. So I agree with all of that.
Right.
I just don't like Tony Montana. Like Tony Montana complaining, you know, who is a killer and a drug dealer and just is an out of control person. He you know, he's a terrible person. So listening to him bitch about capitalism sounds exactly, frankly, to me like some wealthy capitalist bitching about capitalism. I don't care about your opinion.
Well, Elvira clearly doesn't care about his opinion either, Steve, because she says, she scoffs at him and goes, "A true capitalist if I ever met one." And this kind of gets Tony's attention, and he says,
"How would you know, bubblehead? You ever do nothing like get your hair fixed and powder your nose? Look at you. You do too much of that shit, you know?"
Nothing exceeds like excess. You should know that.
I should know what? This fuck. Why do you have to talk to me like that all the time, right? Like I gotta know something.
So again, here we go. Why are you disrespecting me? You know, I called you a bubblehead. Why are you now talking to me like this? So yeah, he's unaware of seeing his own behavior and how it contributes to the animosity that is a element of every relationship that he's in. You know?
Well, this is the foolishness of Tony, because I'm sitting there going, dude, this is what you signed up for with her.
Right.
Her behavior was never anything other than this.
Yes.
She's been doing coke and being rude and insulting and cold and condescending since she came down in that elevator, and you were into it.
Right.
Now now you don't dig it. It's like, no, this is what you signed up for, dude.
And Frank rolled with it.
Yeah.
Right? Tony takes it personally. That's the difference. And that may be why Frank had you would argue, a much more successful relationship with Elvira than Tony did, because Frank didn't take her jabs that personally.
I mean, I also think Tony's totally right. Does she do too much coke? Yeah, she totally does. And is she unhappy because she literally does nothing with her life? Yeah, that is part of why she is unhappy. She is a kept bird in a gilded cage surrounded by cocaine.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love anyone she's around and feels entirely unloved. Yeah, she's a miserable person.
She doesn't love herself.
And doesn't love herself.
Which is why she's in the situation that she's in. And then we see a news report, Steve, and I think the film is using, you know, its techniques to make commentary about the state of the drug war in 1983 when this film came out. This idea of legalizing drugs, and the news report talks about that. And we are treated to this commentary on the massive state of the drug business. And to me, it's very comparable to Sicario, how Sicario tried to show us what is going on in the drug trade and in what's going on with Mexico in a very brutal and honest fashion that we haven't seen in a film before. But, of course, because it's Tony.
It's those guys, man. It's the fucking bankers, the politicians. They're the ones that want to make coke illegal. So they can make the fucking money, and then they get the fucking votes. They're fighting the bad guys. They're the bad guys.
So I do think Tony has a point here. Again, he is probably the most unreliable person to be delivering this point, but it is a strong point. There has been a belief that the reason they keep this stuff illegal is because they can campaign on it and they can push these programs like the stupid the DARE program, whatever that was, all those things so they can look like they are against it. But we know through history that politicians, businessmen have all been involved in the drug trade in this country. these and people who are saying they're against it are the same people who have people participating in it and have at times profited from it. So there's a big hypocrisy within the drug war. But again, the message gets kind of lost when it's Tony.
Yeah, I mean, is Tony right that there are all sorts of people that, turn a blind eye or help in one way or another to keep a system going that they profit from on some level? Yeah, totally true.
Yeah.
And Tony is one of those people.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, the irony that Tony is one of those people, yes.
Can't you stop talking about money? It's boring, Tony.
What is this going for, man? Boring? What's boring?
You're boring.
Oh.
Money, 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 money. That's all I ever hear in this house.
And then she jabs him where it hurts and says, Frank never talked about money.
Oh. That's because he was so smart,
And then Tony and Manny have an exchange in Spanish. And essentially what Manny is saying, watch out, you better drop it, she's getting pissed. And Elvira apparently can't understand them from the look on her face. And now she calls out Tony really hard and says,
You know what you're becoming, Tony? You're an immigrant spick, millionaire, who can't stop talking
Who the
about
fuck
how
you calling
money
a
sucks,
spick, man? You
or
white
how
piece
he's
of
getting
bread.
fucked.
Get out of the way of the
Why don't you
television.
just dig a hole in the garden, honey, and bury it and forget about it?
I work hard for this. I want you to know that.
It's too bad. Somebody should have given it to you. You would have been a nicer person.
and Steve, I can't think of the Citizen Kane moment where Bernstein or the silver spoon. And he's like, don't you think you lived a good life? He goes, and he says, I lived a good life in spite of the money. And so I think it's an interesting comparison that goes in my mind on this. What are your thoughts on that?
So I have thoughts, but so does one of our patrons on this exact moment, which is we have a message from one of our incredible short suggesters, Ryan Lieb, who writes, do you read pro-socialism messaging in this film? It's obviously about the dangers of excessive wealth and greed, but I think Stone is taking it a step further, indicating the American dream as a whole. Tony is extremely anti-communist due to living under Castro, but later when he has achieved wealth, he calls capitalism getting fucked. A bit of dialogue that particularly jumped out at me was when he tells Elvira he worked hard for his wealth, and she says, someone should have given it to you. You would have been a nicer person, which I think mirrors a lot of the conversations we're having around taxes and universal basic income, healthcare. Is Stone saying it's better to give people what they need than let people like Tony take it? And is he saying that all rich people are versions of Tony Montana on some level? Woo. So I definitely think some of this stuff is in there. And obviously knowing Oliver Stone's politics, it makes sense that he's doing that. I think it maybe is a little too far to say that you would have been a nicer person if people gave you things as an entire, key point to a socialist economic system.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, like this thing that's happening with Tony in this moment is a classic sort of new money, old money, immigrant versus established person thing, which is the old money goes, we don't want to talk about money. We're quieted about it. We don't buy things so aggressively. We don't want to show off. And Tony is like, I busted my ass. This is my dream. Of course I'm going to spend it and live it. And that is definitely a contrast. And I definitely think Tony is a person who was never given anything and had to fight for everything, and that formed his character. So I do think that, but to me, it's a little bit far to go. This is all, a socialist plot by Oliver Stone.
I think even if it was, this is not the template to do it in because the message gets lost, right? And I think when you look at where he's going to write Wall Street 4 years later, I think at 87, that is a much more stronger commentary. But you can see the bones of what he's going to write in these exchanges. I think Ryan is correct in assessing the moments in this movie that might lean towards a political commentary about socialism and about money. But I think in this situation, you have to look at, I think it's really important to things that case specific. Because of how Tony is constructed, Elvira is saying, you might have been a nicer person because you wouldn't have been so bloodthirsty about money and cutthroat about money and think money is the most important thing in the world. Because in the end, near the end, when Tony's sitting there with the mounds of coke on the desk after he's killed Manny and after he's like not happy. There's no happiness in Tony because even after achieving all the things he achieved, he's still empty inside because it's hollow and money is hollow. So what she is saying is like, if you had this money given to you, you wouldn't have developed this overwhelming need for it all the time. as somehow proving your worth. And that's her comment. Now, there are plenty of rich people, as we know, as current one, that does not mind, that is driven by making as much money as possible all the time.
Yep.
But I think what she is saying, it's specifically for Tony, if he had been given the money from the beginning, he might have been a better person. And I think it's very true, because I do think Tony cares about things. And if Tony wasn't so driven to prove himself all the time and to get as much money as possible, he might have ended up a much better person and done some real good in the world.
You know what? Well, we won't spend any time on this digression, but it just popped in my brain of like, there's so many super rich people that just seem really, really unhappy to me.
Yeah.
And I just suddenly went like, who are the happiest rich people? Like Warren Buffett seems happy. Like he seems like he's kind of got his stuff together. But there are a lot of people who's like, okay, you have billions of dollars and you're pissed off all the time.
Right.
What was the fucking point of those billions of dollars?
Right. Well, because people develop a belief that the world should operate the way they want it to operate. And I think it's even more of a fuck you or mind fuck, that like, even with all this money, I can't make the world act the way I want it to act, no matter what I do.
You know what it is? It's actually classic addiction. This thought just popped into my brain, but Tony is addicted to power.
Yes.
And what happens is when you have an addiction is you say, if I have this thing, it'll make me happy. And maybe it does make you a little bit happy.
Yeah.
But then the amount that you have is not enough to make you happy. So you always have to have more because your tolerance goes up.
Right.
And you continue to believe, even though you're actually, as the addiction proceeds, you are actually becoming less and less happy as you imbibe more and more. And the only thing you can think of is, I obviously need more because I'm not happy.
Right.
And that's what Tony is doing, is seeking power, seeking wealth, seeking drugs, and none of it is making him happy. And he just goes farther and farther and farther.
You could argue that the more money he gets, the worse he becomes as a person.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
absolutely.
Ironic.
Yeah.
But
no, actually, I don't think it is ironic. I think wealth and power are corrupting.
Okay.
I think that's why there's so many angry rich people. I think it gets harder. But when you get everything you want, I think it gets harder to maintain a moral, ethical, balanced human stance. I think privilege is not healthy.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I think if you haven't worked on yourself to understand and have perspective about that kind of stuff, then yes, I agree with you 100%. But we're not done criticizing Elvira.
You know what your problem is, pussycat?
What is my problem, Tony?
You got nothing to do in your life, man. Why don't you get a job or something, Do something. Be a nurse. Work with blankets, lepers, that kind of thing. Anything beats lying around all day waiting for me to fuck you, I'll tell you that.
There's nothing in this relationship that's healthy. I mean, like, like Tony going, you should go work with blind kids and lepers. It's like, have you met Elvira? And it's all terrible.
And that's Elvira's exit is Manny's cue to get out of there, saying he's got a date. But before Manny can walk out, Tony tells him that he is going to handle the cider bomb thing. This pisses off Manny.
What do you mean stay out of it? It's my deal. I set it up.
You're not a negotiator, Manny. You know that. Come on, man. You like the ladies more than you like the money. That's your problem, I tell you.
What the fuck are you talking about, okay? I'm your partner, okay? You're not going to trust me with that kind of thing. Who the fuck are you going to trust?
Junior partner.
Bullshit, man.
Okay, don't talk to me about trust. I don't like it.
You know what? You should listen to your wife, man. She's right. You are an asshole, man.
Come here. Give me a kiss. Come here. Come here. Hey, fuck you, man!
So now Tony has lost Elvira and Manny in this moment, who've both walked out screaming that he's an asshole. And this causes Tony to get into his righteous indignation.
Who put this thing together? Me! That's who! Who do I trust? Me!
And then the camera pulls out as we see him sitting in this opulent tub from above as he mutters how he doesn't need Manny or Elvira. And in my mind, he is left all alone in his paranoia in that bathtub, Steve.
First of all, I feel for Manny. Manny is the character I feel most for in the film. Yeah. And I have been a Manny with people who I saw doing bad things or trying to manage from below someone making, and all that stuff. And this moment because Manny says out loud, I'm your partner. And to be rejected by Tony the way he does in this moment is just terrible. And it's also, Tony does need Manny. If there were no Manny, the Colombians have killed Tony.
Oh yeah,
like
100%.
Like there's so many moments throughout this movie. Manny took Gina home, and yes, obviously there's problems there too. Manny's the guy who shot Frank. Manny has backed him up everywhere. And I am 100% certain that Manny is smoothing shit over with underlings who Tony abuses all the time.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Yes, 100%, 100%. But again, as you said, he's addicted to power. So in his mind, anyone who would dare to take any kind of semblance of credit away from him, to think they have equal power, he has to step on and push back in their place because he sees them as a threat to his power. And that's why he says, like, who put this thing together, man? Me. Who put it all together? It's like, no, bitch, you didn't do it on your own. There were a lot of people who helped you put this thing together. But in his mind, he's the brains of the operation. Therefore, should get all the credit. We cut to a basement-looking room with Tony and Chi-Chi dealing with Seidelbaum and one of his assistants who are counting Tony's money. We hear Seidelbaum's assistant talking about being in the Marlon Brando film Burn, which I've never seen, Steve. Have you ever seen Burn? And what this leads to is Tony being arrested because Seidelbaum has been an undercover Fed. All these Feds storm in because there is a hidden camera in the clock that has been monitoring them for hours as they've counted Tony's money. And I do think it's important here that Seidelbaum's assistant, once again, we have another Cuban character who calls out Tony for giving Cubans a bad name and says,
bro, you call yourself Cuban, you make a real Cuban, throw up.
I just want to hit these points because I think it's important in defense of the movie that this is, yes, you can argue that it glorifies Tony Montana, but only if you ignore all the terrible shit he does in the film, because the characters who are living a straight and narrow life as good immigrants in our country are the ones calling out Tony for embarrassing them for being the way he is. And that's an important thing, I think.
It's definitely there for a reason. There's no question that that's there on purpose. I think there are movies where the moral lesson is super clear and you can't miss it. And there are movies where it is far less clear. And so in this particular movie, yes, you're right. Oliver Stone and Brian De Palma put these moments in for a reason to make that exact point. And I am absolutely certain that there are many people, particularly young men, who those go right over their head because they want to get to say hello to my little friend.
Of course. Well, I mean, listen, like we said when we covered the Jordan Belfort film, Wolf of Wall Street, like if you think it's glorifying him, it's because you have a proclivity to like a guy like this. Because there's enough in that film to make you not like him. Just like The Sopranos. There's enough in that series to make you not like Tony. Is he charming? Is he interesting? Do you want to watch a show over and over again? Absolutely. But he's a horrible person. So you have to understand that when you're looking at it and assessing it. And it's up to you as the viewer to decide how you feel about this character. Well, that's all led us, Steve, to a front page of the Miami Tribune with Tony and his lawyer Sheffield on the front of it with a headline that reads, Drug King posts record $5 million bond. And we have this scene between Sheffield and Tony. This is played by Michael Aldrich. Done a number of films and TV shows, but nothing of really big note. And he lays out the trouble.
You give me a check for $100,000, plus $300 in cash, and I guarantee you walk on a conspiracy charge. But they're going to come back at us on a tax evasion, and they'll get it.
What am I looking at?
5 years. You'll be out in 3.
So Tony now understands where he's at in the situation, and he even blames Manny for it, and I think kind of rightfully so, for Manny setting this up with Seidelbaum.
In Goodfellas, you take your prison time like a man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that is just expected that at some point that's going to happen.
Right.
That is not Tony's reaction.
No.
Tony's reaction, even though when he says it's 5 years out in 3, which, I mean, I don't want to go to prison for 3 years, but as far as Tony's situation, it's not that bad. That is unacceptable to him.
Right.
There's no way that's going to happen.
Even when Manny tries to tell him that the prisons here are like hotels.
Yeah.
There's a thing for Tony. What the communists did to him is deep in his body. And so the idea of having to surrender control to someone else again is something that is antithetical to his existence.
No way he's doing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, no way. So how's Tony going to get out of this, Steve? Well, apparently he's going to visit Sosa because we cut to Sosa's compound. He is led into a room where he's introduced to business leaders, military leaders, and political leaders who are all in cahoots with Sosa in the drug trade. And then he's introduced to Charles Goodson, a person from the U.S. government who is played by Greg Henry, which a lot of you may know is Peter Gwill's grandfather in Guardians of the Galaxy. the actor.
Yeah, it's great seeing him. And the way De Palma films this scene, this is classic De Palma to me, which is that he's moving the camera around in a way and playing music in a way that is saying in a very clear sense, something is going on here.
Yes.
There is an important conspiracy. There are tensions and thoughts and communications and all sorts of things, and we don't know what they are, but it's very interesting. You know?
Yeah. And having an American representative there is also a commentary of the movie of how the U.S. claimed to be against drug war. Meanwhile, a lot of the rich friends of these politicians who were against it were benefiting from the drug war. So I think there's a bit of a commentary there as well. Well, Sosa pitches him this proposal, Steve, that can get him out of his trial issues. He'll probably pay a fine, back taxes. But he has to take out a man named Gutierrez, who is an outspoken reporter who we now see in a TV interview calling out America for being in cahoots with Sosa and the people who are sitting there with him. Except for one person, he talks about a General Cucumbra. And the person that we see in the photo, though, in that video, is Colonel Luis Arce Gomez, who was an actual member of the infamous cocaine coup that ran in Bolivia from 1981 to 1982, which is why the guy they focus on doesn't look like the guy in the photo.
Yeah, I just found that confusing. I was wondering, like, I didn't understand. I was like, is that the guy?
By the way, Gutierrez is played by Carlos Centeno, who was a Puerto Rican actor, did a lot of stuff in the beginning of his career in the 1970s in his respective country, but then had some stuff in America and appeared as a munitions man in Star Trek VI, Steve. They cut down his role. He had a much bigger role in the original cut of the movie, but they cut it down to where he is like a one scene in the film, which is such a shame because there's a few people in here who are in Star Trek movies, including Clark Gregg and F. Murray Abraham from this movie.
Oh, true.
We should have had Pacino in the Star Trek movie. Klingon?
You remember Alberto, don't you?
How could I forget him?
Alberto is an expert in the disposal business. He's going to help us fix our problem. But he doesn't speak English. He doesn't know his way around the States too well. He needs a little help. Is that a problem, Tony?
And Tony seems reluctant to do so. And this is heavy stakes now, Steve. Like, this is essentially a political assassination, even though this guy's not a political figure. He's involved in a political situation.
I think it's a really interesting scene. This scene, much more than the capitalist in the bathtub scene.
Yeah.
This scene really does show a worldwide conspiracy of evil, powerful corporations and governments to keep this drug trade going.
Yep.
So I think that's good. I don't see Tony as all that reluctant. You know, to me, he seems like he signs up pretty fast.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, because he wants. I mean, to me, like, I don't see Tony as a person who has a problem with killing people. You know.
Yes, but I do think Tony has a problem with killing people he hasn't decided to kill.
Oh, that's probably true. Yeah.
And that's what I sense from his slight reluctance in the whole situation. Because Sosa's telling him, because I don't think Sosa told him until he came down there what he was going to have to do. Tony might have deluded himself that he was going to, like, you know, have to pay a lot of money to get out of the situation and maybe take some hits on the drug side of things with Sosa to make it right and have Sosa wield his political influence on his friends in the States. I don't think he thought he was going to be asked to murder somebody. You know?
But by the way, one thing that I just find hilarious, and just in terms of filmmaking and technique, which is that they've created a front projection TV in the picture frame of what looks like a portrait. And I'm just sitting there looking at this going, there is no way in broad daylight that front projection from 1983 could possibly light up a screen like that in a room.
Yeah.
And what it actually is there is a blue screen or a green screen where that TV is, and they're just compositing it in there. But it's just one of those funny things where they went, ooh, it'd be really cool if these fancy drug dealers had this very expensive TV setup, you know, and they do it. But I look at it now and go, that actually doesn't work.
Janky as fuck. Now we cut to Tony in a restaurant who is clearly drunk, and in my opinion, kind of feeling sorry for himself in this situation with Manny and Elvira.
I want you to stay down here for a while. Run things for me. I gotta go to New York next week.
But he doesn't tell Manny, even though he asks Tony. He does not tell Manny what Sosa is having him do. Maybe Tony doesn't want him involved. Tony calls out Manny for Cytobomb, which causes an issue between them there. And now he goes in on Elvira and his entire state of life. This is an existential monologue from Tony, as existential as you're going to get from Tony Montana.
Is this it? This what it's all about, Manny? Eating, drinking, fucking, sucking.
Come on.
Snoring. Then what? You 50? You got a bag for a belly. You got tits. You need a bra. They got hair on them. You got a liver. They got spots on it, and you're eating this fucking shit. You're looking like these rich fucking mummies in there.
Oh, it's not so bad. Could be worse, you know.
This what it's all about?
Forget it. Forget it.
This what I work for?
I'm asking this question seriously.
Okay.
Is it possible that if Tony doesn't get killed next week, that this existential crisis will lead him to any kind of change in any way on his life?
I think this is a fantastic question. And I'm going to speak on it as a Latino and maybe even as a man, right?
All right.
Just remove my ethnicity. We get softer as we get older. We lose that drive sometimes that we had of, piss and vinegar and the broken glass and barbed wire in our guts, the confrontation. Like there's things that when you're younger, you're more adept to do as you strive for the things you want to achieve in life. As you get older, you become more emotional, more introspective, more contemplative. And I think as a Latino, I would say myself personally, I saw my father do this. My father, who was a very rough dad at times. And when I was young in his 30s and 40s, I got a few whippings from my dad and harsh words and things of that nature. But as he got older, his diabetes got a hold of him, his cancer got a hold of him. He became a completely different person, much more loving, much more open, much more honest with his feelings and vulnerable, putting away all that anger and then apologizing for the things that he did at the end before he passed on. And I've seen this happen with me. And I've seen this happen with other people. Like there's changes that happen as you're done with the wars and you look back and you go, oh man, why did I say that? Why did I do that? And if you've done any self-help awareness or self-awareness or self-help or any therapy, you're even more introspective about this kind of stuff. And so I think there's a chance that if Tony had gotten a little bit older, both Manny and Gina, if he had not reacted in the way he did to their wedding, would have been able to humble Tony and maybe even get Tony out of the drug business by the end. I don't know. But there is a possibility here because this is such an unusual monologue to give him at this point. And we don't even know he's 50. He's telling us that he's 50 in the movie here in this moment.
I don't think he's saying he's 50. I think he's saying when I get to 50, I'll have a big...
I think he said, you're 50, you got a bag for a belly. He's looking at himself. He's pointing at himself. You got tits, you need a bra. He is talking about himself and his state of existence right now and seeing the emptiness of his state of existence after he's achieved everything he wanted to achieve. He now looks at how stupid everything was when he was young, snorting, fucking, drinking, sucking, all that shit. It's all meaningless. And he's realizing that in this moment.
I mean, to me, it always seemed like he was looking into the future, but the point is still the same. He's looking around and going, is this all there is? This is a class, as you said, this is an existential crisis.
Yeah.
I think the kind of person that Tony is, I find it very unlikely that he could actually plumb the depths of this existential crisis in a significant way enough for him to make the changes that you say that maybe he could make. But this is the first step. And there are all sorts of fucked up people who actually do at a certain point go through something that makes them change. I mean, I honestly, if there is anything that could have conceivably make him change, killing his best friend who just married his sister, you talk about an addict hitting bottom. Well, that's a pretty good definition of bottom. Right. Maybe it's possible. Frankly, I don't see a lot of opportunity to change with Tony Montana, but I hope for everybody.
Yes, as well you should. Yes. Well, and I also think if he had had a child, I think he would have possibly changed. And remember, when he pitched Elvira about being together, he said, "What do you think about kids?"
Yeah.
And this is what leads to this moment here.
Look at that. A junkie. I got a fucking junkie for a wife. Don't eat nothing. Sleeps all day with them black shades on. Wakes up with a quaalude.
Don't play that.
And who won't fuck me because she's in a coma.
That is fucking harsh, man.
It's brutal.
It is a brutal, and I mean, it's not like their relationship is all sunbeams and rainbows.
Yeah.
But it is rough and it is public.
Yes. And this isn't just jabs, right? This is full-on pummeling that he's doing to her, emotional pummeling. And this is finally it for Elvira. And she unleashes on him.
How dare you talk to me like that? What makes you so much better than me? What do you do? You do drugs and you kill people? Oh, that's wonderful, Tony. Real contribution to human history.
Go ahead. So tell everybody. Come on.
You want a kid?
Tell the world.
What kind of a father do you think you are?
Come on.
And he starts to physically go after her, just like Michael Corleone with Kay. He's almost like a snake, like lashing out from his seated position. And now everyone is watching because she's making a scene.
Okay. I have Nick, the pig, as a friend. What kind of life is that?
And I think somewhere buried in this anger is this feeling that there was the possibility that there could have been a romance here between them, but it never really came about because of Tony's obsession with money, obsession with status and power. And she is not turned on by those things. She was clearly turned on by I know, Steve, you're going to disagree with me, but like his tender attempts to connect with her in those moments, putting on the hat, being playful with her, telling her how she's a lady tiger and he wants Lady Tiger in his car. When he talks to her by the pool, telling her like, since the day I met you, I knew you were for me. Like these are these attempts at tenderness from a very rough person that I think she saw as possibilities. And now in this moment, with the way he has embarrassed her in public, I think he killed any last possible remnants of love that she has for him. And so she unleashes on him and laments her life.
Can't you see what we're becoming to? We're losers. We're not winners, we're losers.
Okay, get off.
No.
Come on.
No. I'm not going home with you. I'm not going home with anybody.
And she walks out. It's a powerful end, man.
It's the part, you're right, I do disagree. And the one word I disagree with is when you said she is clearly turned on by him.
Oh, clearly. Okay,
it's the clearly that is the problem I have with the film and their relationship.
Good point, man. Yeah,
is that there is a hint that maybe when she laughs, I mean, he basically forces a kiss on her, and which is she's really clearly upset.
Yeah.
And then he takes the hat and she laughs.
Yeah.
The laugh is not enough. That is not enough for me to build they could have had true love. There's nothing like that. There's no moment in this film where I am going, there clearly was a real connection. There is never a moment where I see her look at him and go, I like this guy, or I admire this guy, or this guy is interesting.
Yeah.
It's never happening. And that's why this scene, even though what makes this scene work is not the end of a relationship I care about, because I don't care about this relationship.
Right.
What makes the scene work is the public calling you're a drug dealer and a murderer in a fancy restaurant in front of people in tuxedos.
Yeah.
It is the public humiliation and exposure that is what's dramatic about the scene. Yeah. I don't feel bad about the end of this relationship because I never cared about it.
Well, that's fair. I don't feel bad. I wouldn't say I feel bad necessarily because there were no moments of tenderness after they got together. And this is something that people pointed out about the movie, that there are there's no kissing between them other than the forced kiss, as you alluded to. There's no tender moments with them at all in the film, in the back half of the film after they get married. And even the kiss that's shown in the wedding, it's covered by the veil. So there's something about that that's missing that I think you make an excellent point. I just buy it because in my head canon, I've fabricated this in a way, and that's fair. It's my head canon, right? But it's not in the movie necessarily. So I totally hear what you're saying. By the way, real quick, Michelle Pfeiffer said she had such a hard time shooting the movie because she had to lose so much weight to stay the look that she looked, the emaciated look that she has in the film. And it really drove her nuts. So there's something she was very aware of going forward in films, that she did not want to put herself through this extreme kind of diet to look the way they wanted her to look in the movie. And another element of this that's really fascinating, which I didn't know, Nancy Allen, who was De Palma's wife at the time, from Dress to Kill, and of course RoboCop and other films, Blowout, she felt she should have been cast for the part of Elvira and was upset that De Palma did not cast her. And he acknowledged that his decision not to cast her was the final straw in their strained marriage, and they divorced the next year in 1984. And his defense was, I didn't cast her because she wasn't right for the part. I'm a director. I have to make choices. And I got to say, I don't think Nancy Allen would have come anywhere close to what Pfeiffer does in this movie.
So first of all, Michelle Pfeiffer does look really skinny. I thought it through the whole movie that she looked not healthy. Yeah. And of course, it for the coke addict person who's not eating, that does work for the character. But it is problematic, particularly in terms of how women are treated in Hollywood. And that's a real problem. I am 100% team Brian De Palma, and that is why it's not generally a good idea for an actor to marry a director. Yeah. Because the fact is this is how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I had a relationship-oriented friendship, my son thing that related to the Cine-Files, and there was a thing that I felt would make the Cine-Files worse that I had to do to please some member of my family, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
Because I wouldn't, I mean, it's not like I would do it, like something that made the Cine-Files 1% worse, maybe I would do it. But like in general, I'm going to protect our show.
Right.
That is where my morality lands.
Yeah.
A director's job is to make the best movie, and to do anything else is unethical.
Yeah. Yeah. So Tony responds to her leaving, going, leave her alone. Another Quaalude, she'll love me in the morning, which is really dismissive. And then he notices people looking at him. And Steve, he launches into one of the most iconic monologues that have been quoted by numerous people for years since this movie came out, and essentially commentating on the hypocrisy of rich people who in their mind hide behind their criminality, as opposed to his supposed openness.
You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be.
What's interesting to me about that line is that what he's saying is that the issue, he's saying they're scared, but he's saying that deep down they really want to be like him.
Right.
The violent man who acts on his emotions and does what he wants to do when he wants to do it. I don't think that's what all of them want to do. And what I think it's kind of a split with the movie is I think people that love this movie, they have that gear of, there's part of me that wants to be like Tony Montana. Yeah. And I don't have that gear. Right. And so like that's why I think it's an important line and a misconception of Tony. I think some people want to have the guts to be what they want to be, not all people.
I think it's an excellent point. And certainly in the room, there's probably probably not a lot of people who are necessarily people who don't have the guts to be what they want to be. But I also think Stone is using this line as a commentary on the audience. You don't have the guts to be what you want to be. You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. So you want to judge me or judge other things or judge other people or judge other characters. What are you doing in your life? Are you doing what you need to be doing? Are you doing the thing like you don't have the guts to be what you want to be?
That's a great point, because you know how I think I've actually misinterpreted to some degree.
Okay.
Because if you're saying people need to have the guts to become what they want to become, Tony's totally right.
Yeah.
If he's saying you don't have the guts to become what I am,
right,
then he's not right.
Right.
Because not all people want to be what Tony is.
Yes.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So, what'll I make you? Good?
What's so great about this is that he is essentially pointing out that the emperor has no clothes. He is standing in the middle of the most powerful room, and he's saying, you judge me, but I am judging you. And the difference is I know who I am, and you're liars.
Right.
And watching the reaction that happens around the room to this person that they don't ever want to have to see is great.
The calling out is so powerful here because he's calling out Stone in his script is calling out society as a whole and the hypocrisy of society, which is you think because people dress up in these nice clothes and go to these nice restaurants that their criminality is somehow better than the people who come from lower income classes and the things that they do, because they hide their criminality better than the people who are more, for lack of a better term, gauche in their criminality. So there's a judgment in society. That's why we have white collar prisons versus blue collar prisons, which to me is fucking madness. I hate white collar prisons. Because I would argue some of these white collar criminals are infinitely more deserving of harsher punishment than people who do other things that are in these blue collar prisons, quote unquote. So I love that he calls them out like this. But again, he's not the person who should be doing this, but the scene itself is amazing. And this is why you cast out Pacino and give him monologues so he can deliver these moments so effectively. Yeah.
So first of all, I couldn't agree more. Like, you have a guy who rips off a liquor store for $50.
Yeah.
And that guy is going to get punished harder than the person that embezzles $1 million.
From old people, from
old
people in our country.
Yeah. So I 100% agree on that. The second thing is, where I disagree. So where I kind of said, and I think you agreed to some degree, that in the bathtub, he is an unreliable narrator. He is not the best person to bring this message. I don't feel that way in this scene. The only person that could bring this message to this crowd in this moment is the bad guy. That is the only thing that can happen. The other thing, I think, we're in a fancy restaurant, everyone's in tuxedos.
Yeah.
How many people in this restaurant do cocaine?
Right. Another point. Great point. Like, who enjoy the cocaine. I provide the thing that you enjoy, and you're not going to go to jail for it, but I will. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You are participating in the same thing.
Yep.
Like, there's so much about race and immigration and class in their disdain for this person. Now, I disdain him too. I don't like Tony Montana.
Right.
But those people are like, we're the fancy people, and he should not be allowed into our room.
Right.
That's what it's about. And that's why I think it's a great scene.
New money, old money. It's just like you were alluding to before. Absolutely. And listen, this is the thing that's tough. We all have to make these compromises, right? You say, well, fuck these tech bros, yet you go on Twitter. Fuck these tech bros, yet you order stuff from Amazon. Fuck these tech bros, yet you live a lot of your life using things that tech bros create. And so it's an interesting conversation we have with ourselves. Where's the line? Where's the morality? Where's the true standing up? Right. And Tony calling them out for being part of the system, but thinking they're somehow not as terrible as him because they lie to themselves that they're dressed up in these nice clothes, go to these nice restaurants, that they have somehow more worth. I think that's the thing that's fascinating when you look at it.
You're not good. You just know how to hide, how to lie. Me, I don't have that problem. Me, I always tell the truth. Even when I lie.
I'm sorry, John. You're going to have to give me your interpretation on the meaning of, for me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
I hate when you put me on the spot with something like this, because I love this line.
It's a great line.
It is.
You should love it. It's fantastic.
I've never sat down with the line and dissected it, but I always just felt it was his way of saying, like, I'm a liar, and I'm honest about being a liar. So even when I'm always telling the truth, even when I'm lying, because I'm a liar. So if you believe me, that's your problem. So
here is what my interpretation is.
Yeah,
is that what I think Tony is kind of saying is, I might lie a lot, which he does,
right,
but I have always honestly presented exactly who I am at all times.
Good point. Yeah, exactly. I'm
Tony is Tony Montana. There is Tony is telling you who he is.
Yes.
I am a killer. Do not fuck with me. If you push up against me, I will destroy you.
Right.
That is it. And so in that sense, he's telling the truth even when he lies.
Right. And so he wraps this monologue with an amazing, eminently quotable line that people have said for a long time and even influenced the creation of one professional wrestler.
So say good night to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're going to see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you.
It's a fantastic button to this monologue, Steve. I love it.
Does he know that he's going to die? There's a little bit of, this is it for me soon.
He is in a place of, I think he does think he's going to die. I think he was reluctant about taking on this thing with Sosa. I think he hates the fact that he's going to now be in hawk to Sosa for the rest of his life, probably. And so it's almost like he's bemoaning the previous life he had, the live free, die hard type of life that he had. And we've just heard him talking about being 50 and hair on his breasts and the belly and all of that and liver spots. And so it's all a lamentation. So at the end, he's almost saying goodbye to everybody because in one way or another, he senses or he feels that he's going to die. And what do we know about Tony throughout the whole movie? He has an instinct about things before they happen. And so I think he does have a little bit. And look, he's drunk. He's probably on coke. So how much of this is actually accurate that he's legitimately feeling these things? I don't know. But I think you can take it that he does sense that there is an end coming for him soon in one way or another.
I think there is definitely some doom you're feeling at this point.
Right. Absolutely.
By the way, one tiny button detail at the end of the scene that I really like.
Yeah.
I love that Ernie tips the maitre d' as they head out.
As an apology for the whole situation.
Sorry for all the trouble.
Ernie's a good guy. I think Ernie's a great guy.
I like Ernie.
I like Ernie too. So after we finish this scene, Steve, I think it's time to take a little bit of a break and end part 3 of Scarface, because we're about to get into some crazy stuff that's going to happen in this movie, leading to the demise of Tony Montana.
This has been some exciting stuff. And John and I got into some interesting conversations, and we would love to hear your thoughts about the philosophy and ideas of this film, where Tony is on his journey, how he feels at this moment. You can leave a message on our Facebook page. Just do a search for the Cine-Files. It's Cine_Files on Twitter, the Cine-Files podcast on Instagram. You can subscribe to the show at all the main podcasting platforms. If you want to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, it'd be appreciated. Comments on YouTube and Spotify are great. You can also subscribe to Apple Podcasts if you want to support the show there, or on patreon.com/the Cine-Files, where you can get ad-free versions of the show, as well as our Cine-Files shorts, or ask questions about upcoming films, as we've heard some of them here. And if you want to buy or stream Scarface along with every other film we've ever reviewed, it's at cinephiles.net. And I am at SR Morris on Twitter and SR Morris1 on Instagram.
There you go. And for me, you can follow me at The Rocha Says all over social media, and head over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/John Rocha Says. And listen, let me know how I'm doing. I don't always lead these. So when I get a chance to lead them, especially for a film as important as this, it's always an honor and a blessing. So let me know if I'm doing okay, or if there's some notes. So, Steve's already given me notes, mostly positive, but there have been notes to get this thing scored away. So let me know personally how you think it's going, because I'm loving this conversations with you, Steve. And I like what we're exploring and talking about, and especially as we've gotten into the last section of this particular part. So I'm looking forward to part 4.
Well, I'm having a ball, and I love sitting in the, the color commentary seat rather than the play-by-play. It's a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to next week, where I am certain we will conclude our exploration of Scarface right here on the Cine-Files.